and welcome to the season finale of Season 2 of Super Geeks, Episode 20. My name is George. I'm one of your hosts, and with me today, as usual, is Sun Sale. How you doing, son?
Hi, you didn't introduce Carlos first. Is that because he's not at the top of the list?
That's because you are the first person I see when I look in the team speak.
Yeah,
That
just
and
again, because he's not at the top of the list.
also his name in TeamSpeak is not Carlos. He is Super Geeks. He represents us like he is the ship. If it was Star Trek, he is the Enterprise. He's the AI. He's Super Geeks.
Okay, I misheard that. I didn't hear ship.
No, it was just an analogy. But anyways, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, as okay as I can be for having a really messed up hand.
How's the chair doing that almost made you collapse and fall one episode?
I am still sitting in it. It still has a broken leg that is
So you're
like
still
wood screwed in together.
so you're still using it, and any time this is still an imminent danger.
Uh, Oh no. Okay, so the other chair, yeah. We just got rid of it. It yeah. It was broke beyond repair. I'm now using a kind of a boudoir stool right now, but one of its legs is broken and has been drilled with wood screws back together.
You and chairs. Wow.
Yeah, no, yeah. See, that's the thing. All these people go, well, why don't you just get like a gaming chair? And it's like, do you know how expensive those things are?
I
They're
got a
like
chair for
three
free.
hundred freaking bucks.
They can be, yeah. My one of my neighbors had gotten a new computer chair, and he was gonna throw his out. So he put it. He put it outside for people to just take with a sign that said, take whatever. And I'm like, oh shit, I'll take it. So I took it. So that's how I got my new gaming chair.
People,
It's not.
people are like, why don't you just go to Walmart and get an office chair? And I go, I can't use an office chair. Why not? Because I fidget so much, I literally pull the metal apart.
All right.
I,
Well,
I mean, I literally detached the chair part from the piece that is literally the bottom of the chair.
if you actually get a chair, a computer chair, or whatever office chair, whatever you want to call it, I'm looking at mine right now because I'm on the couch this time, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, if you could break that, you have special skills because that's like plastic
Fidget.
and
I fidget all the time. I can't
yeah.
sit still.
Well, you keep
It's
using
just
wooden
it's a
chairs, so
byproduct of having all the afflictions that I have. I can't just sit. I have to fidget. I have to move around.
all right. Well, that's something. So, and then we've got Carlos, or I should say Super Geeks, but he is Carlos Pedraza. How you doing, Carlos?
Good to be back.
Good to have you back. Are you on the train right now, or did you already get to your destination?
I have gotten to my destination. I'm in
Oh, that's right.
Palm Springs.
Oh, how's the weather? Got to ask that.
Well, at night it gets chilly because it's the desert, but during the day it's in the 70s, so no complaints here and sunny.
All right, cool. Well, like I said, this is the season finale. I can't believe it's been 20 weeks since I brought back Super Geeks, but and you've only missed like one or two episodes, Carlos. So you've been hardcore. Son, you missed a couple
Yeah.
episodes too. So you guys have about the same
Yeah, it's the
track
holiday
record.
season. Things get hectic and sicknesses ramp up and
Yeah, the only person
I
who hasn't
can't
missed
take all the stress.
well, and the only person who hasn't missed a show is me. But if I missed a show, that's kind of sad because I don't know who uploaded it. Anyways, so there's quite this is one of those weeks where there's a lot to talk about, which is interesting. Some weeks we were kind of scrounging, and me and Raul went through that last week. But it was a good discussion though. But this week it's just like boom, falls in your lap. And the first thing I want to mention is we did okay. So we've been doing hold on, we've been doing a reaction who as a side thing. However, it was Doctor Who just finished season 11 or series 11 if you're in England, and Jodie Whittaker is done with her first run, though she has the New Year's Day special coming very soon next week. And I think there's about one or two episodes that we haven't talked about, but I just want to go over the whole, like an overall view of the finale and the season and Jodie's first run. Let me start with Carlos. Carlos, what do you think of the finale, and how are things looking ahead as far as Jodie's run as the Doctor?
Well, first of all, I I loved the finale. Um, to me, it really hit the marks of a good Doctor Who episode. I feel like in the first season of Jodie Whittaker's run, they bent over backwards to have each story be standalone and all this stuff that I didn't like it. I mean,
You
I
didn't
think
like that format, right?
I like the reboot. Since the reboot, Doctor Who's has always had running storylines throughout all the seasons, and that was one of the things I thought was really strong about it. And this season they didn't do that up until the finale, of course, where they kind of went back to important things that happened in the season premiere. And then I felt like, oh, thank God, finally there's some running thread of story that connects, that bridges the whole season in a way. And so it was a relief to finally see that, and I think it's one of the things that made that finale really work. I think it clarified a lot of the character development for the companions, or I guess they're called the fam now, um, and so that was great to see too, because I think their the characterization or the character development of the companions this season has been kind of in fits and starts, and we saw a lot of those otherwise unraveling threads kind of come together in this finale. So I was really pleased about that as well.
Carlos, let me ask you a question. Have you ever watched any of the episodes of the very first Doctor, William Hartnell?
No, I've seen no complete episode of the first Who. I just couldn't. I just
Well, the reason why I
the
asked is
production
because
values were so awful.
yeah, I understand that, but I have recently watched a couple of the episodes. I understand the '60s production values and all that back in the day, but one of the things that someone said, "Hey, you need to watch this episode and look at it and juxtapose it with Jodie's first season because I think you'll find something to talk about." And they were right. Um, it everything that happened this season is almost a complete mirror to the first Doctor and his run with his companions Ian and Barbara and Susan. And these three companions, and you got the older companion instead of the Doctor being the older one, um, in Bradley Walsh's Graham. But you have the younger girl and you have the in between person. The thing is that the way that they interact with the Doctor and the way that the Doctor is trying to be careful that they don't like go into too much danger and keeps trying to warn them, but they end up stepping up, so to speak. Um, I think it's very much mirrored. I think that what the producers were going for is Chibnall seemed to be going for a
But isn't
retro.
that the problem though? I mean, I feel like trying to recreate something from Doctor Who originally that just
There's
it
there's
was 50 years ago. It somehow
there's
is
a
not a good
problem though.
idea.
There's a problem with doing that though. You're recreating the character interaction, but you're not recreating the threaded storyline
But they didn't really
because
have that back then. But what they did do was they they made episodes that ended like the way they formatted the episodes back then was completely different. So there's no comparison. But with Jodie's run, the bad guy that came back, the Tooth Fairy guy at the end, um, that that wasn't really an arc. All that was a returning villain. There's a difference. Like you could have Davros come back, for example, but it doesn't mean there was an arc the whole season. He could be in. There
Oh,
could be.
you're
yeah,
absolutely right. There
but
wasn't, but
but you have to
it still
remember though.
tied it together in a way that if they
Right,
hadn't done
right.
that, I would have been very disappointed.
But even so, even with the first Doctor, you still had like the Aztecs is 4 and 5 episodes in
It was one of the
itself.
best episodes of Classic Who,
It
according
is
to fans.
4 and 5 separate episodes, so
The
it
Doctor gets
is an
married.
arc.
Yeah, the Doctor gets married to an Aztec princess in that people forget that. You know how David Tennant used to joke about his weddings and all the marriages he's had. Well, I didn't realize until I rewatched some of the Who's, William Hartnell, that he had gotten married in that very long first that one Aztec episode you're talking about, son. There's a lot that happened that affects the history that the producers draw from, and they mention it. So some fans don't know that happened. But yeah, so what Carlos say to Carlos's point, the connective tissue, I guess you want to call it, is it wrapped up things like Graham's situation when he's facing the guy that killed his wife, or was responsible for his wife's death, and he had that choice of killing him. Um, I think it would have been personally more interesting if he had not listened to the doctor, killed him, and told the doctor he didn't kill him. I've had a lot of people agree with me on that, but he chose not to
What
because
would be the point of that, though? I mean,
but
I can see
human realism. That's why. Just not a point of saying
that's
No,
a
that
no, 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 no,
pretty
the
no, no,
doctor
big
no.
brought
thing
it
to
on.
lie
Okay.
about,
Wait, whoa,
though.
whoa, 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 whoa. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Before we can even get into the him killing the Tooth Fairy or not killing the Tooth Fairy, we have to cover one very important uh, thing that happened to Graham from the episode before. He found a sort of closure
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
with Grace's death in
With the
that
frog alien.
previous episode.
Yep, I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, he accepted her death, but not. I mean,
You got a
But
little
see,
bit
here's
yes,
more
the
than that.
thing.
but
Here's the thing. He
confronted with the
accepted
person,
yes, confronted with the person who
person who
did the
killed
murder,
her.
floods all that emotion back.
Right,
Yes,
exactly,
and
exactly.
it is that this episode, this finale, is him conquering the human emotion to lash out in immediate anger.
And it also goes to the point of him being an older companion who's wiser and has he's not like a young trigger ready companion like say Ryan who probably would have killed him, or maybe he wouldn't, but he would be more likely to do it.
See,
Graham,
the way they kept playing up this whole ooh, some companions aren't coming back. I really thought this was going to be an episode where Graham actually did kill the Tooth Fairy dude, but he did it to save everybody else to escape from the thing.
I think they were trying, and this is the only misfire I think happened in this finale. I think they were trying to imply that the Doctor's values rubbed off on Graham, and that part I don't quite buy because throughout the season I think she was a little too much over the top. Look, I was watching The Doctor's Wife the other day, and even Matt Smith's character tells the TARDIS to finish him off, girl. When it comes to House, House was a living entity, and he was willing and able. You threatened the TARDIS itself. You've gone too far. So he basically gave permission for the TARDIS to kill House. She didn't just get rid of him; she killed him. He said, "Finish her off," and he did it with no remorse, nothing. He just like finish her off like she was some kind of a pack dog, or he was a pack, or she was a trained dog to kill that other thing. And then we go. So the Doctor is capable of telling something or someone or killing. We've seen it with Capaldi too.
Well, see, but you also have to remember this weird whole rubbing off thing makes no sense at all when you literally had his wife be someone more outlandish and more adventurous than we've seen out of the Doctor this entire season. And she was only in like one episode.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that Jodie's character is developing. It's the first season. That's the whole point. We're looking at this as a glance. All the other Doctors, their first season, they were by the second, third season that they were in. Of course, like especially Capaldi, the writers seem to figure that Doctor out and make a stronger version of the Doctor. Like as time goes on, I think every first season is going to have its growing pains because they're figuring out this new Doctor. And I think if the first female Doctor, to be fair, is they had a bigger responsibility to make sure she didn't fall into any tropes or as few tropes as possible for people to complain about because she is the first female Doctor. What do you think of that, Carlos? In
Well,
general,
I think that it was in some ways it's ironic to me that the season was in some ways very simplistic because they decided not to have any real arcs through the season, and yet at the same time it was a very complex season because it was a female doctor. And so that's why I felt like there was this tension throughout the season that kind of made me want it to be more complex, but because it wasn't, it didn't a lot of the stuff that I think they could have explored around her being the Doctor being a woman for the first time that we know of, um, kind of slipped by. I mean, they did it. I think there was one episode that they did, the one with King John, um,
King
that they
James.
really, yeah, King James, yeah, right, James the First. Um, they went there in that one, but again, it just felt like a one-off.
Yeah, a lot of people said that the episode was great, but didn't feel like a finale. Which is the same I'm going to talk about later about Titans. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, but I think that what this episode was, or this season was they have you're exploring this new Doctor, you're figuring things out, the dynamics with
Whoa, 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 whoa. Phrasing.
you're exploring this new Doctor and not
Yeah,
not probing
yeah,
the new Doctor.
yeah. No, 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 no. Like in
Hey,
the
if it was a
normal.
male Doctor, you wouldn't have said that, son.
No, I would have said exactly the same thing.
I know.
I would have said exactly the same thing, because I'm in all of those sexual communities, and exploring is a perfectly natural thing.
Well, we do. Okay, let's talk about that teaser for the New Year's thing. I think obviously, and they've talked about this. There's a lot of evidence that it's going to be the Daleks that the Doctor's talked about when Graham asks, "Who are they?" There's tons and tons of people saying behind the scenes, it is the Daleks that they're coming back. This isn't part of technically season 11. Well, it is, but it isn't. It's like attached to it, so they can do the Daleks without Chris having lied and said there's no classic villains in season 11 because the New Year's special is separate from that. If it is the Daleks, I am actually going to be very happy with this because I think it's nice. It'd be nice to see something familiar besides the Doctor and the TARDIS. What do you think of that, guys? Anybody?
Well, I do want to go back to the one point that Carlos made. You said
Okay, sure.
the season felt kind of off because on the one hand it was really simplistic, but on the other hand it felt weirdly complex.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, that is like the best example of life, period, which can be so simple and complex at the exact same time, and you don't know what the hell's going on.
Well, that's true.
Well, sure, but the thing is, this is drama we're talking about, and drama always, because of the limited amount of time, if movies followed everything in real time, they would be hours and hours and hours long. You have to skip a bit, brother, as they say in Monty Python, to get to the point. And so I felt like it was searching around for a point before they finally got to one.
And that point was, okay, let's actually have a villain.
I
Well, I mean,
am.
I thought the idea of how they created this villain, essentially by defeating the villain, they created an even bigger villain. I love that. Thought thematically that was a great thing to do. But if there had been that much depth in some of the other episodes this season, I would have been a lot more pleased.
I think what it boils down to is that I mean, they went for Chibnall went for a let's get all. I mean, it's not nothing. Got nothing. Before I say this, it has nothing to do with the fact that they're female. That's a good thing. But I'm just saying he wanted to embrace the fact that we have a female director by having at least if the director was a male, the writer was a female. If the director was a female, maybe the writer was also a female, or there was a male co-writer. He was trying to some kind of a female was involved in every writing or directing throughout this entire season. That has nothing to do with the any pros or cons. I'm just pointing that out that Chibnall was trying to do this as a point. He was like embrace this. And here I am the Doctor. Hear me roar. I guess. Hey, maybe that's the episode name. We'll see. But that's a good thing, not a bad thing at all. But I think that the problem is that they didn't get into the writing room together and say, since we're not having an arc, let's just ad lib. Let's just do every singular episode. And I think it would have benefited from them coming up with some way to tie some threads together, like you were mentioning, Carlos. They had the individual arcs with Graham and his dealing with his grief, but other than that, and Ryan, and him and Graham, and Ryan finally calling him Grandpa the episode before that, but yet kind of went backwards in the finale, in my opinion, a little bit. It's like it's like when Graham was upset in the episode before this with the frog, and Ryan called him Grandpa, and he was like, trying to comfort him. You get to the finale, and it's like almost like, did they film this one before that? Because something felt off. Like you said, Carlos, something felt off. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and at the same time, by the way, I loved the frog episode.
Yeah, I
I
did
thought
too.
that was a well
I loved
pulled
it.
off episode. It was sort of surreal
Well,
and
real quick before you keep going,
I have. Oh my
hold on.
god.
Let me just mention this before you guys finish your thoughts. First episode of anything where a blind actress played a blind character in
yeah,
BBC.
you pointed that out already in
Did I
one
already?
of our earlier. Yeah, you
Oh,
did.
all right. Go ahead.
I have issues with that episode. The story of the episode was great, but I have issues with the Doctor throughout that episode.
I loved that episode. I thought it was great. But Carlos, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, I actually wanted to hear Son's problems
Oh,
with the
okay.
Doctor.
Okay. So every other time we have seen the Doctor, what does the Doctor do when stuff goes down? The first thing the Doctor does.
Pull out the sonic screwdriver. No, what? I don't know.
Exactly. She pulls out the sonic screwdriver and she scans. This entire episode,
Yeah, she
that
do that
entire
also.
episode, the only thing she ever scanned was the sheep. She used a sonic screwdriver to close the mirror.
Hey, she ate
closed
the dirt on the ground, too.
Open the mirror.
But she also
used it
ate
to,
the
but she
soil.
never scanned the mirror, scanned the life forms in the other world.
Whoa, wait a minute. I remember her scanning the mirror. Are you sure about that?
No, she closed the mirror. The first action she does is close the mirror.
I don't quite remember, but I do have to say a little bit of a tangent. The whole sheep rebellion thing was hilarious.
Yeah, it was.
It's
actually
cute, yes.
Yep. I also, what I loved about that episode is that the frog episode is that I like the way they broke up the story and made it seamless in the same sense. Like you didn't know what that monster roar was until they discovered what it was. But
Again, why didn't the Doctor scan when that thing started roaring?
I don't know if the Sonic is a plot device. Maybe it couldn't figure that out immediately. I mean, it has limits. She built it with Sheffield steel, after all. We don't know how reliable it is. It's not a TARDIS built.
Oh, you're trying to diss Sheffield again.
No, I'm just saying the TARDIS built Sonics are obviously 10 million years probably more advanced than the one.
Whoa! Are you dissing the Doctor now and her engineering skills?
Hey, she can only do what she can do with the materials.
It's because she's a girl, son.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sexist. That is so sexist.
And everybody kept saying that light at the end of her Sonic is pink. It's actually not. People kept, oh my god.
It's
Anyways,
not pink. It's orange.
No, but everybody, when they first revealed it, some of the images made it look pink in color, and people were like, "Oh, of course
that's
it's
just
pink."
ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Oh, I saw so many complaints about that on that Time Lord.
Well, hey, why do you think so many people thought it was a dildo?
Well, that's always been a running joke ever since the Moffat written episode where the Doctor turns from Hugh Grant into a female, the comedy release special, and she says, "Oh, the Sonic has another setting," and she was getting excited. That's a running joke when it comes to if you have a female Doctor. That was back in 2001 or something like that. Before they even
But that's not canonical Who.
Of course, but it was funny. I mean, it just. But what I'm trying to say is, yeah, they've always had that running joke that the sonic screwdriver could technically be, let's just say, a vibrator. But anyways, because there's a lot of weirdos out there that.
Wow, I so didn't even think about that.
Have you ever seen Curse of the Fatal Death?
If it's original,
now there's an original.
No.
No. It's a Stephen Moffat written special for comic relief that came out just before they made the new series, where Rowan Atkinson, the guy from what's that show he does on?
Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean.
He played a ninth Doctor because they hadn't cast or brought the show back yet. He has a companion he's going to marry. She's a generic companion, and they get this guy to play the Master, who looks like the Delgado Master, the one before. Anyways, the old Master. And in this episode, he wants to declare that he's done being a Time Lord because he wants to marry his companion and live a normal life. And in the episode, he gets shot by the Daleks who are working with the Master, and he regenerates 3 or 4 times in a row. One of them is Hugh Grant, and then his companion's like, okay, I could get used to this because he's so hot and everything. Then he shouldn't have any more regenerations left, and the Master goes, behold the magic of regeneration, and she becomes, I can't remember the actress's name, but he becomes a female Doctor, and the Master's like all smitten with her, saying like, oh Doctor, you look so good and all this other stuff, and the companion's like, you're I have to call off the wedding because you're literally not the man you used to be, that joke, and then she's like, oh, the Sonic has another sitting, and she gets all excited. So that's where that joke comes from. They went there, and Stephen Moffat wrote it. I'll have to link you later,
Shows
Carlos.
that Moffat was a pervert from the beginning.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to link Carlos later because that comic relief special is so funny. It's not even. It is funny, but that's the point. Yeah, I'm surprised.
Well, yeah, I mean, Stephen Moffat for sure is, he's kind of a perv, but in a great way, I guess.
It was hilarious. I mean, I'm actually surprised you haven't seen it. I'll link it to you later because I think you're gonna get a real laugh out of this. So let's move on a little bit from Doctor Who if you guys are okay with that. Listen, do you guys have any final thoughts on Jodie's first season? Or
I'm glad she's sticking around for another season. I'm also glad that it refuted all those silly rumors about her leaving. Because you may recall, George, that you and I, when we were debating this, I was like completely skeptical about those rumors.
Oh, I didn't believe it either.
Yeah,
they said the same thing with Matt Smith and Capaldi. Those rumors always pop up every time.
Yeah, so that's why we should always be skeptical about them. They just you can't tell from the bare information that they are able to put out there. You can't tell. It's easy to misinterpret whatever might be true, whatever kernel of truth there might be in some of these things.
It sounds like that article we were talking about earlier today.
Yeah.
It's always possible that people pick this up because they might have had, you know what? I don't know where they get their information because even if Jodie did discuss her displeasure about returning, she wouldn't talk about it in front of people besides Chibnall in a private conversation in a room somewhere. They wouldn't be talking about it like in front of people.
It's all clickbait to say it's a rumor legally.
They're not going to discuss it in front of all the staff and the crew and everybody. It's like that's
well, not even that. You have to look at it from the internet traffic perspective. It's all clickbait because to say it's rumor veils the liability they have for saying this is true, this is what's happening.
And often what happens is
because it's some outlandish thing, guess what? They're going to drive traffic to the article because it's clickbait.
Yeah, I don't. As far as I could tell, and I could be wrong, if you track back the source of where they heard this, they don't have any credibility. It's rumors that started somewhere, and then somebody picked it up and said, oh, you heard this and you were working on the camera crew for the show and oh, you guys heard a rumor. Because even at workplaces, people start rumors. It's like office rumors. And they could have heard Jodie had a bad day and maybe she like walked to her trailer and like she was in a bad mood that day and said, fuck this show or something like that. And everybody went, oh, she's leaving the show. And then they turned that into a huge debacle. But yeah, so unless it comes from the source, I call bullshit. Pretty much.
I mean, it's like that news article we were talking about earlier today.
Which one?
With Jodie Whittaker's ratings and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, what market are you even talking about?
And I go back
we live in an internet age where all the markets are their own thing and we all know they exist, but you're talking about one, but you won't give us a link to the source of what market you're specifically talking about.
Yeah, no citations. And the other thing too is that people are just dumb. That's what it boils down to. All right, let's move on. So Carlos, son, I don't think you watched it. I mean, I could be wrong, but Carlos, what did you think of Elseworlds? The CW pulled off another crossover, and wow, there's a lot to unpack. What did you think?
Well, it was a lot of fun. It reminded me of how I felt as a kid every summer when the Justice League, Justice Society crossovers used to happen, and I looked forward to them every year. I find myself looking forward to these CW crossovers every year. This one is laying the groundwork for just what I told you in our
Crisis on Infinite
last
Earth,
debate about this.
baby.
Crisis
Yeah.
on Infinite Earths is coming next year,
I still
and there's
say proxy-wise I was right, but whatever.
Proxy Schmoxy. You were wrong. I told you it was way too early for Crisis on
No,
Infinite Earths.
George. You're pretty much wrong. You said, well, I wonder if it is Crisis on Infinite Earths.
No. What I'm talking about is, were they going to reset it so that the Supergirl Earth is merged? And it wasn't in this one, but Crisis. Oh, I can almost guarantee I would bet
But
money.
yeah, that was the whole point of Crisis. I mean, that's why
Yeah,
they did
exactly.
it. So of course they're going to do it here too. So that's not difficult
To
to come
ascertain,
up
yeah.
with. It was just the idea of timing, and I just didn't think. You may recall that what I said was Crisis on Infinite Earths is a brand. They're not going to use Elseworlds, as a substitute name for
Well,
Crisis
I
on
wasn't
Infinite
sure what they
Earths.
had the rights to, or how far they wanted to go with
What?
this.
It's DC. They own the rights to their own stuff.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like CW's gets the licensing for using the DC brand, and
CW is owned by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers owns DC.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, I thought this. Look, everything they've done in the CW is their version of this or this version of that. I just didn't see them actually, even though they mentioned Crisis in the holographic newspaper, and some will know what I'm talking about because she's watched the Flash. Every time they mention like the future and the crisis that Flash disappears in, that's I always thought that's an Easter egg. It's not actually something they're planning, but it turns out they were. So I'm like, wow, that's or they were hoping to do that, and then they got permission or whatever. Whatever the case is, my only complaint about this crossover, because it was amazing, was that it was definitely more of a setup for Crisis on Infinite Earths than it was as epic as, like, say, last year's crossover. But it was good enough. I didn't like how long they dragged out everybody hearing Barry and Oliver talk about their Freaky Friday moment. Or as Mr. Terrific said, it's more like this than the Freaky Friday thing. I can't remember what he said. Oh, more like Quantum Leap. I thought that was hilarious when they had that conversation. They had the geek conversation in the Arrow episode. But because everybody could only see Barry as Oliver and Oliver as Barry until they went over to Earth 38 and met. And here's the next thing: they met Superman. They used the Smallville theme. Oh my God, Carlos, did your heartstrings pull on that one at that moment?
Yes, I thought it was. Well, I mean, it was a little. Yes, I mean, they did. It worked. I'm glad they did it. I'm glad that they're finding little ways to sort of tie all these things together. So I appreciate it.
They were nodding to themselves though, because the CW handled Smallville, or what became the CW as the show went on, because it was on for 10 years. But damn, that was as soon as they did that, and they were like, "Let's go to Earth 38." My only complaint was about that moment was, why didn't they just bring Iris with them so they could prove, because they wanted to have Supergirl figure out, are we crazy? Can you see us as Oliver or Barry, who's who? And she did. But there's so many little things they didn't answer. For example, when they finally and this is a huge topic, Batwoman, Ruby Rose, who the music, by the way, holy crap! That I listened to that track because the people have extrapolated from it and made videos online about on YouTube with the actual theme that they use for Batwoman. That theme is so good. I actually play it a lot. I downloaded the YouTube clip and I play it just as sort of a motivate. I love it. It's the perfect Batman theme. But Ruby Rose, people have complained like in the past that they were worried about her playing Batwoman because of her acting skills being inconsistent. Uh, I think as always, such as Gal Gadot, if you have the right director, you can they can pull out a good performance. What did you before I get into what I was going to mention about her, Carlos? What did you think of Ruby Rose's performance as Kate Kane, aka Batwoman?
I thought it was fine. I mean, I thought it was kind of an epic introduction. I like that because we don't know about Batman in the scheme of all these things. That it just sort of creates this neat vacuum that other characters get to fill, uh, like Batwoman is. So I'm glad to see it. I think it presents a lot of interesting opportunities.
So they mentioned that Batman's missing for 3 years. They did make a big change in canon, which I have no problem with. I thought it was interesting. Bruce Wayne is Kate Kane's cousin, so they kind of juxtaposed that with Supergirl being the cousin to Superman. Now, one of the things fans picked up on that I didn't notice at first, but when I rewatched it, what Supergirl mentions to Kate Kane is that Bruce Wayne and her cousin are friends. So there must be a Bruce Wayne on her Earth to have been friends, or either that, or this Superman has crossed over to the other worlds before and is friends. But that doesn't make sense because the whole multiverse was new to Kara when she met Barry. So, and she has mentioned the vigilante her cousin's friends with in past episodes of Supergirl. So, Carlos, do you think she's talking about the Earth 38 Batman? And how come she didn't mention the fact that Batman is real too? I would have loved it if they threw out that line when Oliver kept saying Batman's an urban legend. If she had said, "Well, on my Earth, he's real, and he's friends with my cousin." I mean, that was kind of weird how they handled that. What do you think?
Well, I mean, they're teasing, essentially. I mean, they don't want to give away too much, so that's how they're trying to work around it. And plus, because it's different Earths, Flash is different on Earth 2 than he is on Earth 38, and different again on Earth 2, and um, so I think that they're able to sort of work around it by just keeping it sort of mushy about who Batman really is and who Bruce Wayne really is, because it may be different on each Earth.
Did you notice that when they did that scene where they caused the Jay Garrick, not Jay Garrick, but the John Wesley ship Flash from Earth 52? No, not no, 90. Obviously, the number was meant to represent the fact that he's the 1990s Flash. Ha ha ha. But he pops out of that little rift, the portal, and he's trying to warn them, which reminded me of that scene from Batman v Superman with the Flash. Uh, but he's talking about, and everybody's trying to figure out. He looks like he's. How could they even tell under the mask that first of all, oh, he's Jay Garrick from another Earth, or is he a Flash, or I don't know. And I'm thinking, you guys could tell from looking at him and hearing him with his mask on that he was John Wesley Shipp, no matter what Earth he's from.
Well, Barry could, because he knows how his dad sounds.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point. I never thought about that, but it was just weird. But I don't think he died because the Monitor, the effects they used when the Monitor did the sort of the equivalent of the Thanos snap, he disappeared. It was the same effect that was used when he made everybody get teleported somewhere else. So in my opinion, he's still alive. He just made him go.
So the Monitor is basically Q. Okay.
The Monitor is like Thanos in this world, in this universe, but and I think the anti-Monitor is going to be like Darkseid. Um, that's just my opinion because that's how it kind of was in the comics. But the Monitor was testing all the people, all the heroes, to prepare for what's coming, which is the Anti-Monitor in Crisis on Infinite Earths. And of course, Carlos, I'm sure you noticed this. The tease that maybe Barry and Kara die when they're trying to spin around the Earth. Both a call back to Superman the movie when they spin the Earth and rotate time backwards, and the fact that both those two characters died in the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. And then they see a vision of them two dying doing this, and then they change it. But did you notice that those are the two characters that they picked?
Okay.
I did, and one of the things that I read an article after Elseworlds that basically said, "Let Superman be the one who dies this time, and let Supergirl live."
They handle it very poorly as far as Superman, in my opinion. I agree with podcaster John Campia in the sense that they don't represent the Superman. Tyler Hoechlin is good as Superman, but he's like he is in the. I don't know if you ever watched the animated series with Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, but they weakened him because he's in this group thing, and they didn't want him to be overshadowing everybody. So they kind of watered Superman down until one day they explained why that he was holding back in an epic scene. But he gets his ass kicked more than he does anything else in any of these his shows. And everybody. Oh, I kept telling you about my cousin, and they introduced Superman, but he he gets his ass kicked by Amazo. He gets his ass but he does some cool stuff when he stops the other black suited Superman. By the way, that suit was pretty awesome. Um, but I just feel like the representation of Superman should have been more. Hey, this is Superman.
This has always been a problem with the way Superman is portrayed. Um, and this actually affects Supergirl as well. It's like shouldn't she be more super than this? Like,
And she's always
too
hitting
many.
people with her I beams in those crossovers
Oh,
instead of
well, yeah.
punching.
I mean, since when does heat vision have like a physical punch? It like either melts you or it doesn't. So I've never quite understood how their heat vision ended up being, something that actually like could push someone back. So don't even get me started with that one. But
I think I
but
did.
I
I
think
think I
just
did,
the
obviously.
idea that they keep running into people who can just punch her lights out. I'm like, come on, come on.
I know, because I want her to show the other, because the way they talk about her is as if they know she's so powerful, but you don't see on screen her earning these people's respect. You know what I mean? Like Barry called her to help them in the first crisis, I mean invasion, and then she does a little test thing where she floats in the air. She uses her I beams, and they try to hit her. But whenever she was in action, I just feel like Superman or Supergirl could do so much more than they wouldn't even actually need any of the other heroes. If you really want to
Well,
represent how
and
powerful they
that's
are,
that's that's the point. I mean, that's the challenge that's faced by writers for all of these shows is that if they really really depicted, Superman and Supergirl as powerful as they're truly supposed to be, then yeah, they shouldn't need these other heroes. That you can't come up with. It's difficult to come up with uh, villains that are sufficiently powerful to to be a real challenge. So I understand what the problem is, but I think the issue is that it ends up being they end up being inconsistent with what their powers are and how powerful each of them is, uh, and it varies depending on the episode. It varies depending on the writer. It varies depending on the villain they're facing. And I wish they'd just come up with a a consistent power level for these superheroes, because the fact that it goes up and down and up and down just based on the convenience of the plot is a little nerve-wracking for me.
yeah. Um, I'm going to mention in a minute. We got to talk about this first time they're revealing the actress to play Lois Lane. But before I talk about her, what I wanted to mention was that Superman, when he's represented here, geez, what was I going to say? He's very much like willing to help and go over to this other Earth, and Sherlock, Sherlock Wells, the newest version of Harrison Wells, he gives him a check to, can you go back to Earth 38 and hand this to one of my ex-wives? Now, I did read somewhere that they are going to introduce one of his ex-wives as a major character on The Flash when they come back for the second half of the season. I don't know who it's going to be. They said it's going to be someone recognizable from the comics. So I'm looking forward to whoever that is, because they're very good at closing their information. But Lois Lane, this actress, she didn't have a huge part, but she came back in the final part of the crossover with this big hammer. But and then he proposed to her, and she's pregnant. This is a huge thing we have to talk about. In this CW universe, they're about to have a child. They're going to go after Argo City, which is Supergirl's. Uh, is it Argo City? Yeah, Argo City. And son, since I know you probably don't watch Supergirl, just for a quick refresher on what that is.
Argo City was the city trapped in the little glass thing, wasn't it?
Brainiac did that in the normal lore, but that hasn't happened so far in CW.
Yeah, no, the glass bottle city is Candor.
Oh,
Candor.
okay.
Argo City is a surviving chunk of Krypton that has the city still on it and is covered with a dome. And when Supergirl or Superman goes there, they don't
It's
have
just like
powers.
floating in space somewhere.
Yeah, basically floating in space.
In the same well, yeah, but it's a chunk of Krypton, but it's in the same system, so it's in a red sun environment, so everybody's like a human as far as their power levels. So what Superman and Erica Durance, who played Lois Lane on Smallville, it plays Supergirl's mom, who reunited with her, and she's on that chunk of whatever. And Superman keeps talking about how he and Lois have visited there because Supergirl discovered it. And they've been visiting there, and Lois is pregnant, so they decided to be the safest pregnancy where the baby's one kick from the baby won't rip her stomach apart because of the super kick. They decided, which actually was one of the Elseworlds stories. I don't know if you ever read that, Carlos. Lois died because of the child hugging mommy too tight. I don't know if you ever saw that or read that. I mean, But
No, I
that's
never
actually
read it, but I heard about it.
that's probably where they drew that from because it is an Elseworlds thing.
God, those old comics were gruesome.
No, this wasn't old. It was actually not that long ago. But yeah, they didn't show it. They just mentioned it. But Superman and Lois are going to have a child, and Superman is basically, and this has caused a lot of fans to get pissed off. He basically told Supergirl, "We don't need a Superman because we got Supergirl. So I'm going to go off and live with Lois on this chunk of rock and have the baby, and live a normal life because we don't have to worry because you got Supergirl." And what a lot of the
Am I
hardcore fans,
mistaken? But didn't at some point somebody say that Supergirl was actually stronger than Superman?
this is what's caused a lot of controversy. There's been two incidents where Superman says he outright says you're stronger than me, and the fans are just like, what the fuck? Doesn't make any sense. Whatever, because it's like parallel to you know a big guy and a girl, and you're under a red sun or you're not, and you're just enhanced. Whatever. I'm not worried about that part, but he does recreate the Superman moment where he crushes the coal and makes a diamond to propose to Lois. They get engaged and they're getting ready to go off and have a baby. Now, this is a huge Superman lore moment because some people think they're going to do the thing with I can't remember the name of the series. The recent comics have had Superman and Lois have a son, and he becomes friends with Damian Wayne, and so it's like a mini, world's finest, like Superman's son and Batman's son. So they're kind of hinting at that. Maybe time is different, and they come back and it's like a few years later, and the next time we see Superman, the son is like 10 years old for all we know. Carlos, what do you think of that? Because that's huge in this lore.
Well, there's always been a recurring theme in the comics, and we're seeing it now play out potentially on the TV versions of Superman and Lois having a child. And in the comics right now, they do, and as you mentioned, and it gives them the opportunity to explore things, which I think is great. I mean, the fact that we've come a long way from Superman fooling Lois all the time into not being able to tell
Absolutely.
that he's
I
also Clark Kent. So in most
I
movies of
absolutely love that little parody comic where it's Lois who's got a picture of Superman that she's sharing on social media. It says, "Would you like to tag Clark Kent?"
So I'm glad that we've moved beyond that, and I feel like this is the next step in that kind of character evolution. That if you're going to actually have them get together and have her know and accept his secret identity, then yeah, why not have a baby and explore what that might mean.
and now let's talk about the actress that plays Lois. I don't have her name on the top of my computer, but she was a callback to Margot Kidder. She was a perfect casting. She didn't get a huge amount of screen time, but she got enough to make an impact. I think she was fantastic. I would love if they actually do, because there's been a lot of rumors that they're going to actually do a Superman spinoff from this. And if they do, I have no problem with that. I love the fact that they, like Sun mentioned that, or no, you mentioned, I'm sorry, that they start off where everybody knows. It's like everybody knows Superman's story. Let's get to this part. Let's go forward, not keep retreading the back part. And they go forward with it, and they go exploring what happens next. It's sort of like going forward from where they left off in Smallville a little bit. Like Lois and Clark, will they, won't they, with the marriage, and they already know everything. They've gone through all that crap, and let's move forward and see what happens. What is the next step? Well, every iteration gets to the point where either they get married, like Lois and Clark, or they want to get married, and there's things that interfere with it, like in Smallville. But I think it makes sense to go forward instead of going backwards because when it comes to Superman, unlike Batman, Batman's story is a little different. But Superman and his relationship with Lois, I think you need to go forward. I think it's going to be interesting if they embrace that. If they make a show out of it, hell, that'll be awesome. But what do you think of the actress, Carlos? What do you think of this Lois Lane in our CW?
Well, I thought she was fine, and I just hope we see her again to really sort of see what's there. I mean, I thought for the small part that she played in Elseworlds, it was a great introduction. I liked her. She, interestingly, did she strike you as seeming a little bit older than
Well, remember they
Superman?
mentioned in his first episode he was on in season 2 of Supergirl that remember what's his face? Win pointed out they made a point out of saying he ages slower because of the yellow sun, so he should look older.
Oh yeah, so I guess that makes sense.
They actually
s-
explain that as far as his age, how he looks, because he
yes,
should be
that's
way
that's
older than
true.
Supergirl.
That's
Yeah.
true. It's just that generally in the comics and in other TV and movies, they've looked a lot closer in age. So it was just it's not a big deal for me, but it was just an observation I saw.
No, I agree with you. I like Tyler Hoechlin, but he's not my ideal choice for playing Superman. I feel like he's a good choice, but he's not. If you're gonna introduce
Hashtag
him,
not your Superman.
no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there could be a better choice. I'm just saying he's okay, but people
No,
like him.
Tyler Hoechlin is just fine. Seriously, I
Right.
think he's just fine. Um, honestly, I've often thought about, would we have wanted to see Tom Welling in the suit, really, like
Yeah.
on a normal basis? I think Tom Welling works because he probably wouldn't look good. Like if you saw Tom Welling in the suit,
I've seen the
I know you
photoshops. He
did
looks
at the
fine.
end, but it just doesn't feel right, you know?
I feel like he's fine. As far as how he looks in the suit, because I've seen the photoshops. Um, I don't know how. I mean, there was all these rumors he was going to be in it, but I think what the rumors came from, they did a Twitter thing where Stephen Amell was hanging out with Michael uh, Rorschach, whatever his name is that plays Lex, and he was hanging out with Tom Welling, and people thought that means they're making a cameo, and it turned out not to be true. But the Smallville thing was in there, and I think that was where they were teasing us. But Smallville technically does exist in the continuity because we saw scenes from Smallville when the Flash was crossing over to other worlds, and before he even met Supergirl, and we saw the Smallville Earth as one of the many Earths out
Well, I
there.
mean, if you have infinite Earths, of course, one of
Yeah,
them can be Smallville, you know?
I know, and it's funny because they kept saying there's only 52 Earths, and now all of a sudden there's Earth X, and now all of a sudden there's Earth 90. So it's like, oh, there obviously are not just 52 Earths. But I digress. The point is that Crisis on Infinite Earths is coming next year. They teased it. They used the same texts, everything, the same font. I mean, and it's going to be. I'm really looking. Now, one last thing before we move on. John Diggle. They have teased that the Flash from Earth 90 said, "Where's your ring?" And obviously everybody took that as meaning Green Lantern. The producers have gone on record as saying that John Diggle as Green Lantern is to be continued. Oh shit. I think they're going to go there, Carlos. I think they're going to say he's a different version of John Stewart, and that the name is just different. The same way that some of the names changed, like Jay Garrick, because Barry's father had if he had been, if his mom hadn't married the father and just got pregnant, the name would have been Garrick. You know what I
Well,
mean?
well, I hope he's a different John Stewart because that's a comedian.
John Stewart.
Spelled differently.
We're talking
Uh,
about, yeah. Go ahead, Carlos.
yeah, no, I think it's fine. I would love to see Green Lantern. I feel like the bomb that the movie was has kind of soured people on the possibility of a Hal Jordan Green Lantern, but why not? Bring him on.
All right.
So are we getting into like Star Trek territory with the DC stuff?
Oh, they've been doing that. They've been
Because
talking like
like
alternate.
it's like we've got EIC now, infinite Earths and infinite combinations.
Well, here's the thing about Sun. It's funny you said that. This is the thing about why everybody's excited about Crisis on Infinite Earths. The whole point of the comic was to streamline and fix and neat, sort of tidy up the convoluted fact that they had too many Infinite Earths, too many things, too many alternate versions of everybody, and they realized they kind of made a mess over the years that they needed to kind of tidy it and package it up. So, like for example, getting the Justice Society and the Justice League to be on the same Earth and things like that. So they combined. Like the excuse was after the crisis happened, all the Infinite Earths combined into one Earth. So it became every. The reality was you have everybody on the same Earth, and they always knew it. I think it goes along with what I've mentioned.
Wow, that brings back a lot of dead people, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It allows for that. It allows for a rewrite, a do-over of fixing things and streamlining it into one continuity.
Here's the
And
and
question,
yet,
though.
since then, this was like what 85.
something like
Um,
that.
85, 86 maybe. But point is
It
that
broke it all again.
it broke it all again. I mean, we've had so many other reboots that have happened in the DC universe after Crisis that, because it turned out Crisis left lots of loose ends, and so other writers, picked at those loose ends, and everything unraveled again, and so they had to fix it.
Again,
And it
yeah.
became, so it became one crisis after another, and there was Flashpoint in there and all kinds of things. So, there's been like just in the last decade, what, 3 reboots of the DC universe? I mean, good Lord.
Were you going to say something?
I guess my question is like, yeah, I'm already pulling threads on this whole. We have to bring all the Earths together at the end of Crisis. It's like, okay, here's my question. Having only watched The Flash, what are you gonna do about Harrison Wells? Is it going to be Thrawn? Is it going to be the real Wells? Does that mean the real Wells never died? And does that mean Barry's parents never died? Or Barry's mom never died, so he doesn't become the Flash? And if he doesn't become the Flash, how does he be the Flash?
It's funny you said that because the way they left off the mid-season finale of The Flash was that it turns out Nora was acting on everything she was doing to try to save her father was being directed by, guess who? Eobard Thawne in the future, the year 2038, no, 48, something like that. And she, in the final scene, she went to the future, and she's like, "What do I do now?" or something like that. And he's in a prison thing, and he's been like playing her. So I can't wait for the next half of the Flash. It's getting very interesting.
Something tells me that the future Thawne is what's going to set off the chain of events for Crisis on Infinite Earths because
It's very possible.
it's the only thing that makes sense. The
Well,
only
well, well
way.
no,
The
it's not him.
well,
It's the
well,
X.
wait. Let me finish. Let me
X
finish.
monitor.
Let me finish. The only thing. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. Why? Because here you have Thawne, who mastered time travel. Not only just time travel, he also then mastered dimensional travel as well.
The
And I'm sorry. As much as we've had the Barry of the past, that what's her name, the computer lady, she's
Gideon,
kind of she's kind of also got all of Thawne's knowledge of the past in Thawne's future.
right?
So he's got access to all that transdimensional tech. So he's going to wind up being able to start some kind of conflict with Barry, and then zoom, they're off.
I think you
Different
might be right.
dimension, different dimension, different dimension, different dimension. So they're literally going to be fighting across different Earths, and all the other Earths are going to be like, "What the hell is going on?"
I think you might be onto something there as far as his contribution to what causes the crisis. But the monitor in this crossover mentioned there's someone coming that you got to prepare for, and he's talking about what the anti-monitor, and he's the villain in the crisis story. He's sort of like the epic Thanos level or more character that you need to take care of. So this is going to get. By the way, before we move on, Carlos, do you think that the deal Oliver made with the monitor in that one scene that never got revealed, it means that he's leaving the CW because he's going to be the one that dies in this version of the Crisis? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I think that's possible. Arrow's been, I mean, it's referred to as the Arrowverse. um, and in no other incarnation uh, has Green Arrow played that kind of role. Actually in the comics, Flash was always at the center of all the different Earths. Because he was the one who first discovered the link to Earth 2 and to Jake Garrick, and so it was a big deal when Flash uh, died in Crisis on Infinite Earths. But because Arrow came first in the TV universe, I think that it might have the same emotional punch that the loss of Barry Allen did in the comics. So I wouldn't be surprised.
We've always talked about how eventually one of these shows has to go. They can't maintain all of them forever. And Arrow was the first, so I always predicted. My prediction was always that eventually Arrow will stop as a show, but yet you can still have Oliver pop up in crossovers. Stephen Amell could be, hey, you available? Yeah, he comes back and plays Oliver, for the some kind of a. No matter how many of the shows are left, you could say you could still have him pop up once in a while. But in this crossover, he made some kind of a deal with the monitor that was not said on screen to fix all this, and the monitor listened to him, and it had an impact on him fixing it. So I think a lot of people are speculating that he made a deal like I'll be willing to sacrifice myself for whatever's coming in the future. So we'll see what happens, but I think it could be an ominous sign, an omen that this Arrow is as a show is wrapping up. They've been going for 7 seasons now, and the other shows came
Yeah, I've
spin off.
I've heard similar speculation about Stephen Amell's contract being up, and it has been, and I think it's true. The show is a little long in the tooth. It's introduced so many other characters that it's.
I just started watching yesterday, literally. I decided for the hell of it just to go back to Netflix and watch the first episode of Arrow. Is seeing they had a different actress for Sarah Lance back then when he had the boating accident that led him to being stranded on that island. But it's so weird seeing these characters have been going on before they spun them off into the Flash and Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl and all this other stuff. And I just feel like it's been longer than people realize. It's been like if it was Star Trek: The Next Generation, for example, and they were ready to spin off. There's like the original show's been going on for so long. I just feel like I don't know what kind of energy Stephen Amell has, but I feel as though they they have a right to call it quits as far as the show, but just have the characters available for occasional mixing with the other shows, and it wouldn't be a problem. And then eventually the Flash will go, but I think the Flash, because the Flash is the strongest of all of them. I think that one's a huge. Supergirl's popular, but the Flash is the sort of the heart, the center of all this. But we'll see.
Well,
There,
they've certainly portrayed uh, Barry Allen as being kind of the emotional center of that universe. I mean, and Grant Gustin, I think, does a great job in doing that. The way the others, everyone looks up to him and everything, and how he struggles with the responsibility of all that. And I think that largely works pretty well. So so it makes sense. And there's certainly, I think Supergirl was trying to do the same thing for her. I feel like they were more successful in the first 2 seasons than they've been since.
I agree. I agree. Let's move on a little bit. I'm going to let Sun mention. She had a conversation about She-Ra she wanted to mention, but before we do that, just for a short thing, Carlos, you just watched the season finale of season 3 of Travelers. So did I. I watched the whole season when it got dropped on Netflix. Travelers is an amazing, amazing. I can't even say it enough. That show has blown my mind. The writing, the way that they created something original. Uh, Jesus, I mean, I was blown away. For anybody that hasn't watched Travelers, you're missing out. This is an amazing, amazing show. What did you think, Carlos?
I've always been a Travelers fan. So from season one when it dropped 3 years ago, I this newest season I feel has been fantastic. I think they've really, in some ways, season two got into some stuff with some of the individual characters that I thought was cool to explore. In this season, there isn't quite as much deep dives in some of the characters, but there's enough changes and challenges for each of them that it works. Because the overarching arc of the story, with how successful they've been in changing the future for the better, I think is an important one. And I think there are some hints that are given in the show about what direction the show may be going into in the kind of the soft reboot that they're planning, or appear to be setting up anyway, assuming that a fourth season gets
Well,
greenlit.
that's what I love about the season finale is the show. The way they ended it is it's almost like Eric McCormick, who is the main character and also very passionate. I've seen him in interviews. He's also doing the return of Will and Grace at the same time he's doing this, but he's very passionate about talking about this show. He was the one that actually pushed for them to get a season 3. Netflix had a deal with I can't remember the name of it. It's one of the Canadian TV.
Showcase.
Okay,
Showcase.
Showcase. This time, like Showcase pulled out because they didn't want to financially do it. But Netflix said no, we're going to do it on our own because we have a big enough following, and we're going to just we're going to foot the bill. So that we don't know if there's going to be a season 4. But I'll tell you what, they were smart, and they were smart about how they handled it. If you're going to end the season in an ambiguous way, this was the best way to do it because it allows for the idea that there's a reset, a reboot, like you said, but it actually is justified based on the story of what's going on in this show. It works, and they can whatever happens next, even if this is the last episode, it works. It's like the adventure continues, so to speak. They're going to continue to try to time travel and fix the future over and reset it and over and do whatever they need to do. And the way they handled it is you could have years of fan fiction, or someone might pick it up later, and you might start the show over, like say 5 years from now with different actors, but it's the same characters because they get swapped into new consciousness.
Well, I don't think that would work
I don't.
myself. I mean,
Well,
the concept, if it was a comic, you could do that. But people are connected to these characters
the actors too, yeah.
as they're as they're embodied by the actors, and just replacing them, I would feel I don't think it would work emotionally. But I do agree with you that this is a great setup for doing that. I feel like um, there's some built-in challenges that come with that. The fact that it may only be the director and Eric McCormick's character, who McLaren, who
Right.
even know what's happened in terms of him, being sent back 20 years or 17 years, however long it was, and basically going through to prevent the sending back of the original traveler, the
The
first
original, yeah.
traveler.
Yeah, what was he? Travel or 001 or something?
001.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I, you know what? The other thing that they did that dramatically worked for me was when he was he violated protocol. No, it didn't violate. Was it protocol? It's funny too, son. You know how we all get used to in Star Trek memorizing the rules of acquisition to the point if you're geeky enough, you know them all by heart. Well, they have
Yeah.
these. Travelers has these protocols for time travel. What you can and cannot do because they send back these people's consciousness to override.
So basically, like a prime directive.
It is like a prime directive, exactly. And one of the protocols, I think it's 5, is you need to assume the lives of the people that you overrode and took over their lives. The people were about to die when they did it, so they look at it like it's not murder. They were about to die anyways. We're simply taking over their lives. So Eric McCormick's character is an FBI agent, so very useful because you got all these resources that he can access to help the team to do what they got to do for the mission. And he's the main character. Now he ended up actually falling in love with the wife of the character he overrode, and he regretted that he didn't have all the memories of living all the life with her, and like do all the things she talks about for why they got together, why they've been married for so long, all these things. And what he in the way the finale did it is he got sent back so far back in time that he's actually able to start from the beginning of meeting her and live the life he wishes he could have had with her. And I thought that was beautiful. Just the romantic side of me. I thought that was. I could see that being a
It is, except the tragedy is he chose not to do it.
But he did. He went back to
No,
when he
he
met her
didn't. No, he did go back because the meeting was a
on the
place where they
beach there.
could. Well, it was on a cliff overlooking
Oh,
a
right.
lake, but that was the only time and exact time and place that they could identify to send him back.
Yeah, but Carlos, you
But
can tell they're gonna go there where he's gonna try to.
no, he walked away. That's the whole point, is that he
Huh?
said the whole thing about go back and watch it again, you'll see.
Yeah, I think I
He
do have
says
to
the
watch
thing
it again.
about giving back the years to someone. He's talking about his wife, and when he meets her, he doesn't sweep her off her feet and go off. He gives her advice on how to make up with the artist that who is her boyfriend.
But I
And so
think
when
they're
he
gonna
walks
dramatize
away,
that for the next season. That's
no,
what.
it's already, dude, it's already happened. We've already moved forward years and years. from that event. By the time we
Oh, you're
get
right, but we
to
didn't see where he was during that point. We saw Marcy meet David again.
yeah, but that's closer to real time. Um, what we see Eric McCormick's character walk through, 15 years of history. So by the time he gets to 001, time has already elapsed, and by the time Marcy and David meet again, that's another 10 years later. So
Yeah.
he's walked away. What he's done is because he would fall into the same problem again. He would have to keep secrets from this woman that he loves, and doing it again, he didn't want to do that again to her. So
Oh
when
yeah,
he
I
walks
never.
away from
I'm gonna
her,
watch it
he's
again now that
walking
you mention
away.
that.
Watch it again and you'll see that it's all there.
So just right.
Maybe I'm just too analytical because I haven't sat and watched this. But isn't there also kind of like another conundrum here, wherein if he actually did go back to be the boyfriend from the beginning, he'd kind of be erasing everything that the boyfriend
That
was,
doesn't matter. Yeah, the way
that
the
the
show
two of
works,
them fell in love
no
in the
the one
first
thing
place.
the one thing about this show that's great is they don't worry about about that shit because they're trying to prevent big disasters later from people that used to the people they take over would have died. So they're not worried about like making minor changes by
I
being in
mean, well,
bodies that would have been
everybody
alive.
dies eventually, so
I
I
know that,
mean
but
that,
what I
that,
mean
that
is the director, which is an AI in the future, sends them on missions because he strategically picks the right people for them to take over so that they can make minor adjustments like the butterfly effect so that later they can prevent things like a meteor striking the earth, World War III, and things like that that later will cause uh, the chain of events that lead to Earth and humanity being like barely able to survive. So they make all these little minor adjustments. They very planned and everything. So they can live their lives, and the director's not worried about that. If there's a problem, they send a messenger, is what they call it, and they do it. They can only do it through little kids because for some reason the
Because their
director.
minds are still flexible, so they
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
accommodate for short time
Right. So
periods.
sometimes a little kid will show up and
Yeah.
go, "You must, Traveler 005 or whatever. You must go and do this." So they can do whatever they want. They don't have to worry about like them doing something that might change unless it's a big thing. Then they send a messenger and say, "No, don't do that."
But of course,
Uh,
what's happening in this last season is they're throwing all that out the window.
right.
Um, so
this
because
sounds like
be,
some 12 Monkeys shit.
It's
oh, it's
awesome.
not as
They
weird as
handle it
12
so
Monkeys.
well.
It actually makes sense in a way that 12
Yeah.
Monkeys, you really scratch your head through a lot of the 12 Monkeys stuff. So this is a lot easier to wrap your head around.
Yeah. Once you
But,
get into it, watch it.
eventually what we find out in this season is that despite all of these changes, some minor, some major, um, that it hasn't helped humanity. Um, and if you listen carefully to the character of David,
David's
um,
awesome.
yeah, he's a contemporary human being. He's not a traveler, and he says, "You understand, of course, that you're the one making all these changes. We're the ones who need to be making the changes. Those of us in the present are the ones who need to make the changes."
He said it in a
And
fantasy thing, but yes, you're right.
yeah,
That was
but I
cool.
think that's a hint. That's a big hint about how the Traveler program, because they've done it the way they thought
You're
would
right. The
work, and
director
it didn't
says in
work.
the letters in the text at the end, the very last scene is version 2 of the program. He's doing a soft reboot of the AI. The director is he got that message from Eric McCormick's character, and he don't send 001 traveler program failed, and he's like version 2 or whatever. So that was a hint.
So I think in version 2, you're going to see a number of things, of the premises of the show upended, and one of them is they're probably going to reveal themselves to humans, at least governments or
Well, they
somebody,
did. They
contemporary
did.
humans,
They already
at the
did. But
end,
you
but
mean
after everything
earlier?
got screwed up. So,
Right.
um, you know, now it's going to be intentional, and I think that the idea is if they actually give the responsibility over to the people who are living in the right time, in the
They can
original
guide
timeline,
them. Yeah.
they can guide them, but they're the ones who need to take responsibility for their own actions, and I think that's the bigger message I think we're going to get in the reboot, in the season, new season, please, Netflix, please, renew it, because I would love to see how they handle all these challenges.
Yeah, I'm gonna be keeping an eye on the response to this season, because I really, if they end it, I'll be fine. I think they ended it in a good way, on the possibility that it won't get renewed. But I think, oh my God, this is an incredibly interesting, different spin on time travel, and you could make a role-playing game out of this, either online or on the tabletop. There's so many possibilities. It's incredible how they do this. Great writing, great acting. It's just all around.
Well, that's not what you said on Facebook a couple of days ago.
What do you mean? I've been
The
saying
director's crap. These series are terribly written and acted.
No, I didn't say that about Travelers.
Yes, you did.
I'm pretty sure I didn't. I love that show.
Are you sure he wasn't talking about a different show?
I'm pretty sure it was a different show, son, because I've got nothing but praise about Travelers.
I thought it was weird because it's just like he opened up going, "Oh, Travelers is awesome," and then a few days later he's like, "Travelers is crap. It's got a crappy director."
Oh no! It was a different show. Oh jeez, I don't remember which one it was. I know which one you're supposed to talk about. It wasn't about Travelers.
Because it's like, wow, that changed rather quickly. I wonder what happened in the middle of him watching this episode, this show. So it may have been that you had written Travelers and then went back and corrected it later, because I'm pretty sure you said Travelers.
Huh? I don't.
Well, be that as it may, as of today, your opinion is this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure what show you. I know that I did rag on a show that I was watching. Oh no, I was talking about Thailand. I was talking about that Australian show. I talked about it with Raul
Oh
last
yeah, I
week.
remember you. I do
Yeah, it's an
remember saying that.
Australian Netflix
It starts
show.
with a T.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, yeah.
It was Thailand, and it was about sirens, and it's a show on. It is a Netflix Australian production. By the end of it, I'm like, it's okay, but boy, yeah. So that's what I was talking about.
Okay.
And I talked about it with Raul last week when it was just the two of us, because you guys abandoned us.
Okay, that gives me
bitter.
I know.
That gives me Jurassic Park flashbacks. He left us. He left us.
Son, tell us about why you're upset about what Michael J. Straczynski said about She-Ra.
Upset? No. I just had my mind blown today about the original She-Ra. So, like, okay, I watch various YouTubes and they talk about different issues. And for the past couple of weeks, one of the channels that I've been watching called Clownfish TV has been talking about She-Ra, the new She-Ra, and they brought up all of the hate that was coming out of the marketing from Netflix of the new She-Ra, just against the old fans, the fans of the old show, and it kind of blew my mind. But at the same time, they were also talking about this documentary on Netflix called "The Power of Grayskull," which is like their tagline is the definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe or something like that. And I went to go watch it, but I kept watching. I've got it queued up to watch, but I kept watching the interview, and they were talking about J. Michael Straczynski, or I can never remember his name properly.
Yeah, J. Michael Straczynski. You're right. The guy made Babylon 5.
Yeah. Best known for Babylon 5. Yeah, this dude was a fan of the original He-Man and sent in a script for a more female-centric show, like a spin-off show. And they bought the script from him and immediately hired him as a story editor for She-Ra. But at the same time as this is going on, as they're talking about this in the interview or in their discussion, the entire discussion is about how She-Ra was built from the ground up as a feminist-centric show. That's why she kind of has these goddess beauty features because that's what marketing said appealed to girls. But at the same time, she's got this kind of plain yet superhero mom kind of vibe going on in the show because they wanted her to be like this kind of every girl. And she was. What really blew my mind is that the whole premise for She-Ra was built off of what was her name? Began with the T. Lady who was always around Prince
Tila.
Adam. Tila. The original idea for She-Ra was that it was going to be a spin-off with her. And when they said you don't have to use her, you can do your own thing, they built this other story, and it was women who did it.
Interesting.
And the big thing, the big thing is she was built from the ground up to be a feminist icon. But at the same time, you had the censors of the era going, no, 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 we can't have a woman. We can't have a woman doing that. We can't have a woman being violent. We can't have a woman swinging her sword and killing things. So that's why you see a lot of She-Ra's episodes where she's like ballet dancing and just accidentally kicks the bad guy off into the distance.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, but those shows from Filmation were always passive, anyways. Even He-Man didn't actually kill anybody. You know, it was like GI Joe. They all happen to pop out in parachutes when you blow up their jets. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't actually make it a point like they're dead. They either destroy robots, or if there's people in like these fighters, you happen to see them. Oh, they're okay because they came out in parachutes. Well, He-Man was kind of
Yeah.
like that. They didn't actually show them kill people. They dumbed that down, and whether
Oh
it was
yeah.
it didn't matter if it
But
was
yeah, but
He-Man or
we're
She-Ra.
still talking about the U.S. censors in the '70s. So
No, no, it wasn't the '70s. It was actually the late '80s.
no, yeah, you're right. Yes, yes,
But I'm
but
just saying,
yeah.
Filmation was very good. I don't know if I want to say good. They were very careful because they knew children. It was a children's show.
Well, no, no, no. It's not that they were careful. That it's that the censors at the time said you can't do this.
Well, they did make her less aggressive. I will agree with you there. But she did kick ass, especially in her first adventure. Not first adventure, the one where they discovered that she was He-Man's sister, The Secret of the Sword. I
Hmm.
rewatched that recently, and yeah, she kicked some ass. But you're right, He-Man was more aggressive, and I think they did play down that she's a girl, so she's going to solve it a different way. But she did throw things around, display super strength and stuff like that. But you are correct in the sense that they didn't showcase the fact that she could kick some ass as much as He-Man, even though
But
she could.
yeah, yeah. If exploring all of this, it was one fascinating, but at the same time, I didn't realize just how much the Netflix marketing and like the nerd organizations online, like Nerdist, had actually gone to berate people who enjoyed the original series, because it actually got so bad that the original voice actor for Adora and Katra came out with a statement on Facebook about it.
That's a shame. I actually enjoyed that show, and so did a lot of our mutual friends. But things are getting so political these days that sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but they're making their voice be heard. So I don't know. It's hard to make an opinion because if you say the wrong thing on social media, you're gonna get berated no matter what. So that's why I don't like Twitter. But I mean, it's good and it's bad. I don't know. If I had to make an opinion about it, I'm sure I'd get a lot of shit, just like you have, son. You've gotten a lot of shit from people.
Well,
So,
see, and here's the
well, at
thing.
least you're
Here's the
honest.
thing.
You say
I
what you think.
I like both. I have problems with both, but I like both. But at the same time, the there are people who are on the new bandwagon who say you're not allowed to like the old one because the old one was written by men. Bullshit. It was built from the ground up by a couple of women. Oh, you're not allowed to like the old She-Ra because she's a stripper. No, hell no. She was literally meant to be a plain Jane, but she had to be drawn in this fantastical way as She-Ra.
It's not that. It's the fact she's wearing a mini skirt. Have you noticed in the new She-Ra they
The,
make a
the
point?
new She-Ra
Listen, hey,
wears a
hey,
freaking mini skirt, but it's
no, no,
tied
son,
to this like
son,
these
did you?
shorts.
But son, did you notice in the new She-Ra they make a point even when she transforms, of making the skirt blow up so that you see she's got shorts on under it. Do you notice that? It's very interesting, I thought.
That is weirdly. To me, that actually feels like more sexualization than
It's almost like
necessary,
they're saying
honestly.
that like that skirt is cosmetic. Let everybody know it's more of a skirt. It's not, or not a skirt, but a
But well, what? Then here's the thing. Here's the thing. Why don't the pants legs go all the way down on the new
it,
Shira then?
because politics. I don't know. Anyways,
Because if that's the case, why not have protection go the rest of the way down her leg? Why have her legs exposed to anything at all?
well, again, it boils down to cosmetics. People,
It's the Wonder Woman argument.
yes, that's a good point. I like that. It is. It's like some people just want to look good, and they don't know why people have a problem with it. For example, with Wonder Woman, like Carlos just said, they picked a when they made a live action Wonder Woman on the big screen, they resorted to a kind of a cross between her bathing suit and an actual practical Amazonian Greek mythology sort of outfit that people probably wore. So they kind of found a sort of a in between um, way to look at it. Like they
Right. But I
compromised.
mean, I think Sun is right in the with the larger point, which is essentially this is dudes sexualizing female characters over and
Yeah,
over again on the theory that if you cover them up too much, somehow people won't watch. And of course that's a problem. I'm not a She-Ra fan by any
right.
means, so I have no
Yeah,
skin in
I
this
know
game.
that.
But I think that the whole idea that that they have to make a point of showing that she's wearing underpants that aren't underwear
And
is
they do. They
kind
make a
of
huge
kind of
point.
creepy. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit creepy, especially since Adora is supposed to be like this teen-ish character. Like they kept promoting in all of their
They never.
marketing
Yeah,
ever.
that's the funny thing is they never say her age so they can be safe. But it is implied she is a maybe 17, 18. Someone who's not quite an adult, but not a teenager. But they focus on the fact that the skirt blows up, and you see whenever she transforms, and
Really creepy.
yeah,
Really
and they make
creepy.
sure you see that she's got something under there. It's
It's
weird.
really unsettling.
Yeah,
It's
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 really
just it's weird, and it's out of everything. Out of there are a couple of nitpicks in the cartoon style, like the fact that they can never have She-Ra at a consistent height when she's She-Ra. Because as She-Ra, everybody keeps saying, "Oh, she's 8 feet tall," but in some scenes, as She-Ra, she's literally as tall as Glitter is.
yeah, yeah. All
And it's
right.
like, but the only thing that absolutely bothers me about the whole thing with She-Ra is the pants skirt thing. That's
I
the only thing that
completely
bothers me.
I agree with you.
Pick
I
one.
brought it. That's why I brought it up because every time she transforms, the original Filmation version, She-Ra, I thought it was really cool. But the new version is like we just said, they make the skirt do the Marilyn Monroe over the thing that makes her blow up. That famous scene where it's like, but this time you get to see what's under there, and it's a pair of shorts. It's like they make a point out of that. It's weird.
I mean, it reminds me of them taking the Sailor Moon playbook of transformation, where look, let's have our Japanese butt shot. Oops, it's a skirt. It's not a panty shot. It's a skirt.
I
It
agree.
reminds me of that, and I go, that's just creepy. I'm sorry. It worked with Sailor Moon because I expected it from a Japanese centered show, but this is DreamWorks. That's kind of creepy.
I think I know why they did it, but I hear what you're saying. Let's move on a little bit though, because of how long the show's been going. Um, you guys, did you both see the Vader fan film? I know Carlos has. You saw it, right, son?
I marked it to watch, but I was in the middle of watching something else
Oh,
when you tagged me with it.
oh man, Carlos, I know you saw it, right?
No, I've been traveling on buses, trains, and automobiles for the last 24 or 48 hours, so I've
All
not had
right,
a chance to do it yet.
I'll save that subject for the New Year episode, because the Vader fan film. I'll just say this: This is how you do it, people. This guy kept posting about how he was using his own money. It was like $100,000 to make a Vader fan film. Somehow Disney, like you pointed out, Carlos, they didn't give him so much permission. They said, if you want to do it, this is what you don't do, is to get in trouble. And he followed their rules, and he kept posting updates about who he was casting, and he went through the whole, like, everybody's getting updates. So what do you guys think of this person as Padme and this person? And I kept thinking, he's offering way too much information of the behind the scenes. But in some ways, he was brilliant, because I used to do the same thing with Starfinder. And by the time he got done, they released this. I was like, everybody's raving about this. I was blown the F away. This is an incredible fan film accomplishment, and I actually would like to reach out and get him to come on the show. I'm gonna actually do that. This guy, what he accomplished was one of the best things I've ever seen. Like, it's not just a fan film; it makes sense, and it's you're seeing a side of Vader and the things that go on in his head right after he became Vader, and how he wanted to kill the Emperor and Padme and flashbacks, and it ends at the end of episode 1 with him about to jump down and fight Mace Windu, who's still alive apparently. You don't hear it, but everybody's been saying the Jedi down there is Mace Windu. So I'm just saying, when you watch this, it's incredible. He does some stuff with the Force powers that stuff Kylo Ren's done, but he takes it up to the next notch, so that it's actually canon as far as the powers he uses, because we've seen them demonstrated. But he takes story elements from the Vader comic, and it's a beautiful fan film. I have to say, shock and awe. This is like, I watched it and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to see another. Some of the Star Wars fan films have been awesome, but this is like, and this is just the first episode. And I was like, wow. So I hope you guys watch it. It is worth it. It's just a few minutes of your time, but it is amazing. And this guy deserves a lot of credit, because he went out of his way to make sure, hey, Disney, if I make this, you guys going to, cut me off, because he wants to spend a lot of money. Incredible. And so hats off to him for doing it the right way. And
Yeah, I think
Carlos,
it'd be great to have him on the show.
I would
I'd
love
love to
to. I'm gonna
talk to
reach
him.
out to him. I am.
Yeah,
He might. You
too.
never know.
Yeah, he might. The thing that I think is interesting about it is uh, that apparently Disney imposed a lot of rules on him, and they're consistent with what I've heard. Disney, how they feel about fan films, that basically, Star Wars fan films, that basically they kind of do turn the other way, except when it comes to crowdfunding,
Right. Right.
because they are very sensitive to, when it's hundreds of thousands of dollars being raised with their intellectual property, over which they have no, control or accountability. So, which is different from what Paramount and CBS did, which is they were okay with crowdfunding up until Axanar, of course, and so it's interesting to see how the two studios, or three if you count Paramount, have diverged in the way they approach this. And of course, I'm not sure what this film's timeline was, but if it happened either before or concurrently with Axanar, things might have changed if they were trying to do the same thing, starting from scratch today.
Hard
Well,
to say.
well, I mean, George, didn't you say the guy used his own money every step of the
I was
way?
just about to mention that we don't know if he had offline investors that were, but that's okay. You can have friends, family. He can ask for money outside of the internet, as long as, like, it doesn't fall under the radar of the internet, or social media. He hasn't. There's been no request that he made. One of the whole points that he made when he was talking about making the fan film was that he did invest his own money. He never said if he did. As far as I know, I could be wrong. He never said if he did or did not get an. I have a feeling he might have been somebody with a lot of money, that had a inheritance or something, and he wanted to spend it on a fan film.
I thought he raised money
He
on
might have
his
had private
own through his.
investors. Yeah,
Well, it's a misnomer to call them investments, because they're not investments. I mean, they're
that's
not.
true. They're not getting
You
something
make an
back. No
investment with a
return.
view
Yeah,
towards being able to get money back,
no
in
return.
some
Yeah,
way.
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
these are contributions.
They're
Um,
donations, basically. Yeah.
yeah, and the sense I got was that, he has a YouTube channel, and he raised money through that, and apparently Disney was okay with that, but they would not allow him to use crowdfunding platforms to raise the required money.
He'll get money back also from if from YouTube itself if he goes, because that doesn't count, by the way, and this has been talked about in
No,
other.
he specifically said that he will not be monetizing
The
the
video.
actual fan film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, because that's a huge
That's
no-no.
no. That's the no.
Okay. All right. Yeah, he's very also every time people comment or talk about him on a podcast, I've noticed he immediately responds. He's watching. That's why I think I'm hoping I can reach out and say, come on the show. What?
This gets posted on YouTube after Christmas within 5 minutes. Hey, I noticed you talked about me. It's like, we only talked about you like after an hour into the show.
Wait,
How would you reply after 5 minutes?
Wait. Who did he respond to? Was it us or something? Good enough.
No. That's the joke, George. That's the joke.
Oh.
We get the video posted, and 5 minutes after you post it, he's contacting us saying, "Hey, I heard you guys were talking about me."
Well, you know,
Yeah, make sure you put it in the show notes so that if he's doing a search, it'll come up.
You mean tag him, in other words? Yes, Star Wars Theory. I'll also, you can message people through YouTube. Also, I did say to him on his main channel, I said, we're going to talk about you on my podcast tonight. I haven't looked to see if he's responded, but he's been responding to everybody else. So either he's not awake. I have noticed that whenever he talks, he blurs out his face, which is weird. I would think that you would want to have
No, this is
acknowledgement.
No, some people
no.
are not comfortable with other people knowing who
Yeah,
they
that's true.
actually are.
There are a lot of people. There are a lot of trans people who are exactly this way because of them being in transition, and
Okay.
it only makes sense. It only makes sense that at least a portion of the normal population would be like this as well. They would be just really. I mean, look at Japan. Japan has really strict censorship laws when it comes to filming and taking pictures, and you have to make sure you blur other people's faces because of privacy and stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah, he hasn't responded, but I think he just might not have seen it yet. I made a post. I said like he had an amazing achievement, and I talked to him. But yeah, I mean, I think that what he accomplished, like one of the things I appreciated was he kept showing people, and I think this is why he gained the help that he got was every step of the way. Like this is what our Darth Vader's outfit looks like. This is the two actors are picking from to play this at Padme.
Unlike some of the crowd-funded Star Wars fan films, he's keeping people up to date on what's going on and the process going.
Well, my worry was at the time he was doing it was he was giving away too much information. It was almost like by the time you get done, what's left that we haven't seen? The whole thing, because it's amazing how he handled it. He showed people the steps towards creating it, but by the time you actually watch it, you don't recognize anything that he
I mean, this is kind of like
his Emperor Palpatine was amazing. Whoever played that character.
I mean, it's no different than me following or subscribe to Winter Gatan on YouTube, and watching him build his new marble machine. And you're following him in the steps of him troubleshooting the idea of his next marble machine, then getting together the people to help him troubleshoot actually building it, then showcasing all the pieces as they're getting built. Yeah, it's like that. I mean, we all know what the finished product is kind of going to be, but it's still going to be an achievement once you get there because nobody's seen it yet.
Right. And while we're on the Star Wars theme, let's talk about one other thing that you wanted to talk about this, Carlos. There's a rumor that Disney wants to reboot Star Wars. I don't like that idea right now. It's too early. What do you think?
I think that's just wishful thinking amongst the toxic fans who don't like the way Star Wars turned out. I think there's lots of ways for Disney to do what they're going to do without throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Good analogy.
And so, I think it's just I'm putting it down to wishful thinking and to being, yet another one of those toxic rumors that has more to do with people's own people's own problems rather than any actual problems faced
No,
by the
wait, wait, no,
franchise.
wait. It's okay. What is this rumor, by the
The
way?
rumor is that you tell her, Carlos.
Well, I think you know it better than I do, but just the idea that,
yeah.
I mean, you're the one who came across it.
Well, there's a rumor going around that Disney wants to completely reboot Star Wars, as in redo the original trilogy, get new actors, start from scratch, and sort of reinterpret just like they're doing the animated thing. I can't remember what it's called, but they're sort of like a redo of an updated version of A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, so that they can then use these actors and this new interpretation for a new generation of fans to go forward. And you can do the stuff that happened between and do whatever with a new Leia. Carrie Fisher's dead and all that, and they sort of reinvent the wheel. They sort of invent the better mousetrap, as they would say.
I just don't see that happening.
I don't
No,
You
know.
I
know,
wouldn't. No, I
there are
wouldn't.
too many people invested in those original movies, which
And there's
have
too
dated
much
well.
money still being made off of those original
Exactly.
movies.
Yeah, I mean, they've aged well for the most part. That original
And
trilogy,
plus,
and
the
there's
whole point of how long it's been about them aging should never in antiquity. They need to preserve that. Like characters do their legendary things and they get older.
yeah. I mean, long story short, this is just wishful thinking that makes no actual sense when you
Right.
apply
Well,
any
yeah,
degree of
yeah.
skepticism to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, because like, if you're going to start with the original series, why not start by rewriting the prequel trilogy first, and
You,
like making
well,
all of that stuff
Because
streamlined into an original
because the
series?
prequel trilogy came after the original, and so if you're
That's
going
what
to
I'm saying.
reboot,
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
deal with the
Rewrite,
original.
yeah, rewrite the prequel trilogy and make it and streamline it so that it
Yeah,
actually
that's
makes
not
sense,
that
and then
wouldn't
lead into
happen.
your new
That
reboot
that wouldn't
trilogy.
happen. That
it's
wouldn't
too
happen.
close. It's too
You know,
soon.
the point is, if you're going to engage in something like this, you're going to go with the strongest, versions that you have, not the weakest ones. And that original trilogy is the weakest one. So, if you're really trying to get people excited,
Well, you
and
mean the
by
prequel
people I
trilogy
mean
because the
a new
originals are the
audience.
best.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
Carlos, I'm sorry. Let me put on my nerd voice. Mr. Carlos, I think that you will find that when you say the movies have aged well, that it's the story that has aged well, as the original masters of the movie were pretty damaged, so much so that they had to remaster them.
Yes.
That was
Okay. I just this comes down to, as many things do, to economics and uh, and what makes sense from an economic standpoint, because these things have to sell, otherwise they're not going to do it.
Well, yeah,
Um, so I just there's nothing wrong with
remaking
with those
remaking the original
original.
trilogy is a big risk. And what we've seen from the movie industry is that they are pretty risk averse right now.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay.
I think you have plenty of time, but plenty of opportunity by moving into the future to do whatever you want. I mean, trying to trying to have a new Leia, a new Luke, particularly so close, because particularly with the with the original
Well,
Luke
they're probably
Skywalker
going to
being
recast
around. And
Luke for the Mandalorian. That's a no-brainer. But or possibly even
why
later.
do you assume that?
I
Yeah,
think that within
this
the
is
show they're gonna use those characters.
this is a conversation we've had before, George, and
I
both
Yeah,
me and Carlos have
it's
shot you down.
yes, we have, because it
they
doesn't
will.
make any sense.
Of
It's
course it does.
they're trying to build new characters, not distract people
You
by
don't do it in the
focusing
first
on
season.
old characters.
You don't do it in the first season. That's all I'm saying. You do it
It's
like
You
maybe
you're
the
don't
not
do
going
it.
to
finale.
You don't do it with bounty hunters. Period.
if Mark Hamill is still alive, they're not going to recast his character.
We'll see. If your idea is to show a younger version of any
I
character,
I will bet you $1
No, no,
right
no, no, no.
now.
I can guarantee you, if they have Mark Hamill,
wait a
it is
minute,
going to be a
Carlos.
totally
Are you
unrelated
sure?
role to Luke.
But hold on, you guys are forgetting the rule of the X-Men First Class, where you got Patrick Stewart still alive, and they still recast him, and they had both of them in the same movie later. twice.
Yeah, but that was time travel, George. We're
But it
not
doesn't
doing
matter.
Yes.
this with bounty hunters.
This is
But it
not.
doesn't matter.
They're not time
The
traveling.
first
This
two
is not.
movies were not
This
time
is
travel.
Star Wars, not Star Trek. There is no time
No, we're talking
travel.
about X-Men. Hero movies in general.
I know,
So,
but the point you're
We're
trying to
talking
compare the
about
two
Star
when one is
Trek.
about time
We're
travel
Star.
and the other one is not.
Yeah, this is not Star Trek. This is Star Wars. There is no time travel in Star Wars.
actually, there is. It's been canon in Rebels. They introduced it recently, but that's besides the point. It's through portals through the Force. It's a long story, but it is canon. Ahsoka got saved because of one of the characters going back through the portals and grabbing her before Darth Vader would have killed her.
Yeah, I think that's more a one-off than
That's fan service more than anything, George.
No, it wasn't. It was part of their story. They talked about it in the panel at the convention. They said you'll see those portals come back in other things, possibly the movies. But
Well,
anyways,
we'll see.
yeah,
The point is that you're drawing a parallel that isn't a parallel.
I agree.
The X-Men is not like Star Wars in any way.
I'm just saying. I think that at some point during Mandalorian, they're going to use it because they know that it will create huge ratings. Because people want to see Luke what he did between Return of the Jedi and the Force Awakens a little bit, and so you have the opportunity with the timeline. Not saying make it a focus, but it could be incorporated into the story.
If he appears in it, it would be the focus.
We'll see.
It's like
why-
Whoopi Goldberg
why
showing up on Star
If they
Trek.
brought back William Shatner in Next Generation, that would have been terrible. They did in the movie, obviously, but that
they're
was
picking the same time period. This is different though. This is like 5 years after Return
You're
of the Jedi.
being a geek about this. I know we're super geeks, but you're grasping at straws here because
I'm grasping at lightsabers.
it doesn't it
Well,
doesn't
you're getting
make
your
sense.
hands burnt, mister.
Oh, all right.
I will be happy to fall prostrate on the ground if they in fact do what you suggest, but I don't see that being necessary. If they do something like that, it's because it's a desperation move, and otherwise the series is creatively bankrupt, and they're desperate to get some kind of ratings boost or whatever. But if they're doing that, they're being really desperate.
You might be right. I think it will have to do with what happens with Episode 9 as far as like the reaction. Is Star Wars like getting back on the momentum and the fan love? But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. You could prove me wrong, but I think I'm right. But that's fine. That's because we don't know enough information to decide. You're going by.
Has anybody said if Mark Hamill's going to be in 9 as like a Force Ghost or something?
I believe
he is confirmed.
He's going to be in 9. We don't exactly know the terms, but he is going to be in 9.
Like I have to like all the stuff that Mark Hamill has like hinted at after finishing 8 was like fuck Star Wars for what they did.
Yeah, I know, but he did confirm
wow, what did J.J. Abrams say to get you to come back to Star Wars after that mess?
Since you brought him up, son, I'll tell you something I told Carlos in a separate private message from our regular group. There is a behind-the-scenes people talking about a scene that suggests that Kerry Russell's character is the leader of the Knights of Ren because she's been seen in a black armor with a trident that has sort of electric force energy on the top of it, and she's got a flowing black cape, and she has a helmet tucked under her arm like a Knights of Ren helmet, and she's seen in this scene yelling at Kylo Ren while Rey is behind her.
Is this the black lady stormtrooper that we're talking about?
No. Kerry Russell is.
Okay.
She was announced and cast. She's a J.J. Abrams favorite.
Okay.
She starred in his first show he did on TV, Felicity. He directed. And she's a redhead. People thought she was Mara Jade because her name is Mara, but she's probably not. It's just that he used the name to get people to go whoa, and. But I
have a huge feeling Black Stormtrooper Lady or Silver Stormtrooper Lady is not dead.
Probably not. She's been in the Resistance cartoon, by the way, and that's a separate subject.
Yeah, I hope she's not dead because they criminally underused her.
Yeah,
that was a terrible way to die.
She does voice the same character in the Resistance cartoon, and she gets a lot of things to do, which is cool. But it'd be better if she had done it on the live screen. But Kerry Russell's character is implied to be the leader of the Knights of Ren. She seems to be berating Kylo in the scene that people are talking about. Now, when somebody's asked me, they go, But why would you be able to boss him around if he took over the First Order? Well, there's a difference between who leads the Night Order, just like the Jedi Order, and who's in charge, like Palpatine, of the government, which would be the First Order. So he's also part of the Knights of Ren, not just I took over the First Order from Snoke. So her yelling at him and trying to be like, "What are you doing, boy?" I can see that. I can see that, and he being like, "We don't know that he was the leader of the Knights of Ren." That's a separate sort of sub thing that they've never fleshed out in these new stories.
Is
So if
that
that
why
is
his name
true,
is? Wait, is that why his name is Kylo Ren?
but I kind of like the idea of a female dark side bad guy that's sort of like the equivalent of Palpatine as a female. We've never seen that in the movies, and
I'm missing a
I'm
whole
hoping
lot
that's
of
true.
Again, this is why I hate that Episode 8 was the way it was. What the hell is the Knights of Ren?
From what I keep hearing, this movie's going to really explore the Knights of Ren. There's been
Yeah,
several.
unfortunately, I think it's a little late. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
hope
kind of agree
I
with
hope
you
they
there. I
do
kind
it.
of do.
But so far, it's just been this thing, you know. Um, but
I
we'll
agree with you
see. I mean,
there.
I'm not dismissing out of hand. They've done that kind of thing before, sort of retconning, the
It's not so
Jedi's.
much a retcon. I guess you're right. It is because JJ.
It's a retcon because
It is
they.
because JJ is kind of taking Ryan Johnson's thing. He even said Ray's parents being nobodies may not necessarily be the case. What that basically says to me is JJ had one vision. Ryan took his notes and he decided, no, I don't like that. But then the
He
fans
he he
reacted
he made paper snowflakes out of him and said, "I'm gonna
pretty
make my
much.
own Star Wars
And then when they
with
decided to bring back,
hookers and
yeah,
blackjack." In fact,
and
forget the Star Wars.
yeah, exactly. And then when they brought back JJ, he basically said, now I'm going to go forward with what I originally thought since I'm now back in charge. And that's where there's still a little bit of hope that he's going to say, well, this is what I was originally intending it to go, which is
So
that
does this mean we're gonna get an episode 10 too?
some people are saying they're going to split 9 into 2 parts, so it doesn't technically mean it's a 10. So you can say, well, we didn't lie, but I don't know. We'll see.
A
Man, there was
9A and a
so much wrong.
9B.
Yeah,
There was so much wrong
that
with
part's a
A.
rumor, but I really there's not enough substance as far as the rumors to believe that's true. If it kind of scares me because if you're gonna wrap up this in this episode, you've got to really make this a tight script, and I'm hoping that that's what happened. But you know what? I'm trying to remember: is JJ better at starting a saga or ending it? Do we remember this?
Well, he rarely actually ends them,
That's
so
true. Oh yeah, that's true.
it's usually turned over to somebody else. I
You
mean,
know
look
what?
at
That's true.
Lost. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah. It got lost. Ha ha.
yeah.
Ha ha.
So
Well,
who's better at?
even then, Lost didn't even really end properly anyway.
Well, I mean that's the point.
So in other words, the Star Wars Episode 9, everybody dies. It was a dream. No, I'm
no,
just
I
kidding.
don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, who knows? We'll see how well he does at endings. He hasn't really done them that I'm aware of.
There is a strong rumor that we're supposedly on Christmas Eve going to after the football game going to get a teaser for Episode 9. They do have Star Wars Celebrations coming out in a couple of months later. I think it's April. I could be wrong.
Okay. One, if that were true, if that were really, really true, that we were going to get some kind of Christmas Day
No, Christmas Eve.
teaser or Christmas Eve teaser,
That's tomorrow.
considering
Yeah.
it's right now Christmas Eve.
Oh, it
yeah,
is.
no,
Holy crap, you're right.
yeah, considering it's right now Christmas Eve, there would have been a big, huge hoopla over Disney going tune in to football on
Oh
Christmas
no, they
Eve.
intended it to be a surprise, just like they've done in the past, where you watch the thing and then boom, it's there. They don't necessarily tell people ahead of time. You know, and if you look at how they did Endgame, they teased the hell out of everybody until who knows, oh, the thing's coming out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a teaser, not a trailer.
Right. Well, that's how they did it with
Specifically
The
for that
Force Awakens
reason.
and The Last Jedi. They did teasers
Right.
first, then you get 2 other trailers later. I mean,
Well, and it's a year ahead, of the release, so it
it
makes
is,
sense.
but they have done it. The first teaser for The Force Awakens was a year ahead, so there is some
Yeah,
precedent for that. So,
yeah, of course.
uh, we pushed this episode kind of late, so I'm gonna just do one more. I just want to let you guys know that I know Carlos, you're getting ready. Have you started watching Titans yet, or?
No, I've had other work I've had to concentrate on. Otherwise, I would have started already, but hopefully this week.
All right. Titans season review, worth watching. Gets better and better towards the end. Doom Patrol is coming out in February. They did a promo for that where they show that Cyborg from what I read, Cyborg is a member of the Justice League, and he comes over to the Doom Patrol and says, "I need you guys for a mission." And then he's in it for a few episodes, and then he ends up migrating back over to, and he joins the Titans once they start their season 2. But the way they ended the show, I know that I've kind of spoiled it. I'm sorry about that. You don't mind that, right, Carlos? You do.
I've been reading enough about it,
All
so
right.
it's not really a spoiler.
So anybody that's watched Young Justice, but this actually started in the Titans comics, before they even did it in Young Justice. Cadmus, the lab, it's a post-credit scene. It's one of the things that people talked about all over the internet. Superboy, naked with his Superman symbol on his arm as a tattoo. He kills everybody in Cadmus. He breaks out of his clone tank. He rescues Crypto the Superdog. Oh my God, Crypto has never been seen on screen. This is awesome. I don't know if he's a clone or if he's actually Crypto, because I think Superman would have noticed him. But holy crap, I'm excited for season 2. So, wow, they went there. So I'm excited. They've got so much going on. They're so true to the comics. I'm really, really excited. I think Titans is worth watching. I think they're being smart. They did the promo to show you don't unsubscribe just because you saw the finale of Titans. Because look, we got Doom Patrol coming out in February. I know I'm pretty positive that and confident that that's why they showed that promo so quickly afterwards. So they can say, don't unsubscribe. It's coming out soon. You have another thing you can watch. I thought that was
Oh
smart.
yeah, I think that's totally the reason why. I mean, it's only a month away, basically a little over a month
Oh, that's
away,
true. Yep, February.
and yeah, so they want to keep people hooked.
Yep. And so there's a lot going. So far, the DC Universe streaming thing, they have a lot of other shows you can watch that are actually interesting. Older shows we like Birds of Prey, all the cartoons, the Young Justice, even the newest Young Justice is exclusive to that channel. So they start off with a lot of content as far as relating to the subject matter. The difference between that and CBS All Access is, as far as Star Trek goes, I think they allow you to watch the older ones. I can't remember, but most of it's non-Star
Yeah,
Trek,
they do.
and then it's like you have Discovery being current. So people are like, oh, I don't want to pay paywalls for watching my thing. At least DC Universe
Those are
is.
all people over 50, so
Actually, they
you
are. You're
know.
right. One of our friends that Son and I associate with, he starts with the T. Son, you know what I'm talking about. He complains all the time about it, and he is over 50. You're right. It's kind of funny.
I mean, because
I mean,
this
you
is
can't
just
make
the
that generalization either because I have that same complaint and I'm not over 50. So,
well, I am over
Most. He
50 and
said
I
most.
don't have that complaint because the reality is that first of all, as a segment of that audience, we become less relevant with every passing year. Secondly, um, this is just the way that media is moving right now, and in many ways I wish it weren't because what basically you're having is this unbundling where now you're paying a la carte for different content, and that makes it all more expensive because you're not each one has to come up with their own platform, their own technology for that, um, and so you don't get any bonus from like cable did, having the same infrastructure underneath all of the content. So you're going to end up paying just as much as you did for your cable
yeah.
and actually getting less content.
Yeah, this is an old argument, but it's true. I do agree with you completely.
The big thing though is yes, we've had the internet for what, 2 decades now, maybe 3.
Three.
This is
The
still
internet came out in 1995.
this is still the infancy of a digital age. So there's
No,
so much.
we're actually moving into the adolescence, or maybe tweeners, but I would say we're well out of infancy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we still have physical laws on the books in many different countries that have no real bearing on the internet itself. And in some cases that's a good thing, but in other cases that means that these companies that developed solely in a digital world can run amok.
Yeah, the internet. I remember when I got out of the army, the exact year the AOL came out, which was 1995. I came home from the army, and none of us in the army at that time nobody was using the internet because it was new, and there was a DOS version that came first, I think in '92 or '93, and then the
Well,
actual.
no, actually, the internet goes back to the 70s when it was part of the Defense Department.
Oh well,
Um,
yeah, I mean for public
and
domain,
and then the text-based internet,
the DOS version.
pre-browser, that I would not call it DOS because it wasn't DOS. Um, but
Ah,
but
yes,
it
the
was
old
it was
days of
It
the
text
kind of
based.
was,
8K
but it kind of
modem.
wasn't. I know what you're saying
It
though.
it it wasn't DOS. It did
I
not
I, I
use
mean as
that
far
kind
as
of
AOL,
language or
AOL
anything.
started with the DOS version, and then they went to the other version.
Well, I
Visual.
think actually it started with a Mac version, but
You
be
might
that
be
as
right.
it may, well, I was there. It actually moved from Defense Department
Oh,
into
okay. Because I'm going by
academia.
when I came home and
Yeah,
the
no,
internet was new.
it was well underway by '95.
AOL 90, Windows 95
I
had
was
the
I was
AOL.
in graduate school in 92, 93, 94, and at that point, it existed, but it was still, mostly amongst colleges and universities. So, email between kids who were in college at that time. Um, that became a big thing, and of course, out in the real world, you already had things like CompuServe and Prodigy and AOL that were kind of their
And
own
Earthlink,
thing. Well, Earthlink was an internet
little,
thing. It
yeah.
wasn't. It really wasn't its own thing, like
Oh, yeah, that
AOL
counter.
was.
Yeah,
It
AOL
was
really built the groundwork.
Well, AOL is what drew a lot of people in. You have to remember,
Right.
AOL was basically a walled community that had, uh, strategically placed links to things on the real internet. And they didn't go full internet until much later. They
Right.
tried to keep people within this wall so that they could monetize it, and people just were clamoring too much for the real internet that AOL finally was like, okay, let's open the doors.
And interestingly enough, you have to remember that at this point in the beginnings of the internet, they were still applying a physical world structured to a digital space.
Correct.
Real quick before we go, we had a couple other subjects, but I'm just going to mention it. This doesn't have to get into a long thing, but I'm sorry. I like the new Hellboy trailer to a certain degree, but David Harbour is no Ron Perlman. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Well, I'm sorry. I've always thought Hellboy is a big yawner. I've watched the movies, and I've never not fallen asleep in somewhere in the middle. Um, so I guess it just doesn't resonate with me. So I'm not
it
going
is
to
a
pass
niche.
judgment.
Yeah,
But
it is a niche kind of comic booky. Like I don't read the Hellboy comics, so I mean I like the Ron Perlman movies. I'm just going by that. So when I saw this trailer, I'm just like, he looked great, but when he spoke, I'm like, oh god. And Mila Jovovich always works, but geez, I just didn't. Every time he spoke, I'm like, no, this isn't gonna work for me.
Ron Perlman is your Hellboy.
I
he,
mean,
he's his
Hashtag.
Hellboy. Hashtag
he
my
had that
Hellboy.
charisma, the way he portrayed him. And like I said, I didn't read the comics, so when I would see those movies, I wasn't all excited every time like a Hellboy movie would come out. But if I watch it and it was, Ron Perlman has a certain personality that it just
I
worked.
agree with you that Ron Perlman is a great actor under layers of latex and makeup. But I just story wise, it just never clicked with me.
Well,
So
look, it's like it would be this. It would be the equivalent of making a Deadpool movie and not having Ryan Reynolds be Deadpool.
You can actually get away with that if you get the right actor. In this case, David Harbour, he looks good under the makeup. He looks great. I think he looks fantastic, actually. But when he speaks, I go,
You
really?
need a James Earl Jones Darth Vader moment,
No,
huh?
he just has to have a. He has to have that voice, that personality that matches what he looks like to make it engaging. And I just feel like when he talks, he's like, he just doesn't. I don't know. It's something. I could be wrong. I'm not going to go to the theater to watch this movie, but if it comes out
Hmm.
when it comes out on DVD or whatnot, yeah, sure, I'll check it out. But I'm not like the trailer looks great as far as the effects, the way they're telling the story, sort of. But it just doesn't grab me as far as the guy they chose to play him. David Harbour is a great actor. Stranger Things, the guy that plays the I don't. It's not really a sheriff. They call him something else. Not constable. chief,
Basically
whatever.
the sheriff. Basically the
Basically
sheriff.
the chief, the sheriff, right? The head guy, the head police person. Great actor, but as Hellboy, anyways.
Okay, well, we get your point.
Okay. Before we go, I would like to. I want to go back to the internet thing. Did you guys know that David Bowie created his own ISP?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he did, and he actually kind of predicted a whole bunch of stuff that we enjoy nowadays, like YouTube and Twitter and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, there was an article that I was reading when David Bowie died that his ISP was actually still active when he died.
Wow.
There were actually people on the thing, just milling about because of his death, and they were on the ISP.
The Goblin King has a legacy.
Well, George, we should have talked about the latest Star Trek Discovery Season 2 trailer that was released in the past week.
We didn't talk about that?
I think you might have talked.
Was that last week? Not this
You might
past
have spoken to
not last
Raul
week,
about
maybe
it.
the week before. That's the only reason I didn't add it to the show notes. I didn't know if we had. I thought we had talked about it 2 weeks ago. The new one is worth talking. If you want to talk about that, sure. Before we go, because I thought we had talked about it, but as far
this
as
is the newest one that's
right,
all about Spock. It's Spock.
Mr. Spock, are you smiling?
All
yes.
Spock.
No,
yeah.
it's not that one. I mean, that appears in it, but the Mr. Spock, are you smiling was a clip that they showed as part of another earlier trailer. This one was much more about Michael Burnham and Spock and
right.
And
sure, go ahead, take it
you
away.
see Anson Mount as Pike giving more information about the Red Angel and that sort of stuff. So it kind of fills out a little bit more of the story points around all of this, and it looks fantastic.
The universe is collapsing. The Red Angel is appearing everywhere.
I love that line he says when Tyler. Is it Tyler? Yeah, the one that was the Klingon, the human. He says something like, "We got to fight for the future," and he says, and then Pike says, "Mr. Tyler, we're always fighting for the future." I love that exchange.
So we're less than a month away from the premiere, and then we've also got the last one of the short treks coming out next week.
Mud.
Is it? The one with Mud, yes.
We're only a month away, and I still have so many questions. Is T'Kuvma really dead? Is the Doctor actually really still dead?
And
I have so many people died that they say are coming back that are dead.
And we talked about this, but I'm gonna mention whereas Doctor Who is over with for the year, except for the New Year's Day, I want to make a side thing for Discovery, a reaction to Discovery, and hopefully everybody can chime in on that when we do those episodes. So, because it's worth it. Discovery is going to have more episodes, I think, than Doctor Who does. I think it might be less. It might be the same. It's not 10. It's like maybe 13 or more.
14. They're doing 14 episodes in season 2.
All right. Well, that's enough episodes to warrant doing a reaction side thing.
It's almost 50% more than Doctor Who had this last season.
That and Game of Thrones. We already talked about that. So, but yeah,
Star Trek now with 50% more than Doctor Who.
Exactly.
I really am looking forward to this.
As seen on TV.
I think that the biggest thing for me for this new season is Pike. I'm more fascinated by getting to know him better through Anson Mount, and Rebecca Romaine for the whatever amount of time they spend. Because you see in one of the clips from the first trailer that they have a conversation while they're eating or something, where she's kind of talking to him about what the mission is. And I think we're gonna get to know more about, the two characters, even if she's only in 1 or 2 episodes. But
significantly, that scene has her in her Enterprise uniform and him in the Discovery uniform. So it happens somewhat later.
In the Discovery uniform?
Yep, he's in the Discovery uniform.
Oh, all right, okay. It could be the same episode. It's just that he goes back.
Wait, are we talking about number 1 or some other character?
Yep.
Okay, because you had me confused for a sec because you said the actor's name, and I'm like, are we talking about number 1?
And we have had that discussion, that debate, and me and you and Son, the first episode of this season of Super Geeks, Carlos wasn't able to attend, but Timmy D was there, and then I talked about it with Carlos. But we talked about how do you think they're going to actually name check and canonize number one's name? Me and Carlos's opinion, I think Timmy felt the same way, is no, they're not going to. He's just going to keep saying number one. Um, at this point, based on everything we've seen, do you think that's still true?
Well, yeah, duh. I mean, like, if
What I mean is that they're
the
not going to give her a canonized name.
character,
I
no,
think
the character of Pike, the character of Pike across the board does not sexualize his first officer in any way. That's why, like, when the girl comes up in the pilot, he's writing the stuff for the log, and
Well,
he looks at her and he goes. Then somebody makes some kind of offhand comment, and he goes, "Women shouldn't be on the bridge, like all sexist and shit." And number one turns around and looks at him and he goes, "Oh, I don't consider you a woman." And then she looks at him even more, and you're like,
yeah.
"Oh God, just
you know,
get
that's a good
whole
point.
deep."
That's a great point. I hope they actually go there. But we also know, because of the Telosians, that she, unless they ignore this, that she was in love with him because they read her mind, and there was a little bit of
Yeah, but it was
embarrassment.
a deeply buried kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like an embarrassing little moment. They might even ignore that altogether. But I think it would be interesting if they do use it. I don't think how much time they're going to have to explore any of that, but you never know. I mean, we'll
I
see.
honestly think they're going to keep this strictly platonic, professional
It could also turn out that they did get together
relationship.
because this does take place many years after the Talos incident. It's possible. I'm not saying I want it to happen, unlike some of our past conversations. What I'm trying to say is this happens several years after the incident we're talking about in that episode, the
Well,
cage, the
yeah.
menagerie. So it
Well,
is
yeah.
possible we could find out they end up getting. For all we know, they got married, but I doubt that's going to be the case. But you
That,
never know.
no, no, there was nothing. There was nothing that led him to. There was nothing that led to that being a thing anyway, because he still winds up being with.
Yeah,
God,
that's true.
I almost said Weena because I'm thinking God,
Yeah,
the time
Vina.
machine.
nope, you're completely right, son. If he and her did explore a relationship, it didn't end up in a matrimony thing or anything like that because she would have been the one with him, not.
Yeah, it just like I put that in the same
Great point.
category as I do her name. It's like i- if you actually
He's
show them
straight
together, if you
business with
actually
her.
learn her name, take this, kind of legendary, slightly mysterious character, and you trivialize them by just bringing them down to, just another member of the crew. So I think it works better keeping it mysterious.
Yeah, and it's okay to explore the idea that people, when they're working together so closely, they have work, not necessarily in romance, but they get uh, the ideas in their head, like the aliens found that she's attracted to
Well,
Pike.
sure, chemistry and
It
that
doesn't
kind
mean
of
you
thing
have to
is
use it.
fine, but that doesn't mean that you take away the mystery of her name, and it doesn't mean even that they ever get together.
Right, right.
Just
And
like
like Son just pointed out, like where do they take Wheelchair Pike to Talos to live with this Vera, I think her name was
Vina.
Vina, the illusion girl. Unless, of course, he had been married in the past and they divorced. He could have. We don't see this,
That's just such an
but the,
overcomplicated
but this is
backstory.
but this is
It
the
doesn't
thing we
even
don't
it's
know. We
not
don't know his
even
history.
worth pursuing,
They could.
honestly.
I
It's
agree. They
just
could.
so
I
fan
wouldn't mind
wankish.
though. I agree with you, but I wouldn't mind if they
No.
just mention that he maybe he
That
had
we
a.
always come back to this, George, where I'm like,
Fan
it doesn't
wanking.
make
No, no,
anything.
no. I'm
You
not
keep
talking
going, but
about.
it'd be great because I'm fan wank.
No, no, no. I'm not talking about him in number one. I'm just saying I wouldn't mind if we found out that because he's always out in space for months at a time or years at a time that he once had a family and they got divorced because he was gone for too long and he has a family back home and they divorced just to show that he has some history and he didn't just always just be alone out in
Well, what we know
space.
of his
Yeah,
history
yeah,
is that
yeah. And
he
Mark
had no
Hamill is going to be
family.
in the new Bounty Hunter series.
I'm with Son on this one. Sorry,
We'll see. We'll
George, but
see.
you're not going to see any of
You're
that.
not going to see like some kind of relationship forming between number
This
one.
I didn't
this
I
say that.
guarantee.
You
discovery
didn't hear
is
me.
I
not
guarantee.
about Pike.
I
It's
guarantee
not about Pike.
you're
It
going to
doesn't
see
have to be about Pike. We could at least explore him though through this.
No.
you're going to see some kind of interaction between Burnham and number one if she's on longer than a couple episodes about the reason he treats her so stiffly, and it's
Look at the
probably going
way
to have
she's
to
handing him that tablet.
it's going to be something from the Academy days. It's
Look
going
at
to
that
have to be something
sandwich.
from the
Look at
Academy
that
days.
bun. Look at that big burger or whatever she's going to eat in that tray. That tells you something right there.
Oh, good God, George.
You're being ridiculous. I actually assumed when I first saw that clip that she was touching his hand, and only when I looked up the picture now that I sent to you guys, do you see that she's touching a tablet
No, I
and
know,
not
but the
him?
tablet probably has love notes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
Oh,
totally joking.
whatever.
I'm totally
No,
joking. But look
George,
at the size
George,
of that
George.
burger she's eating. That's a pretty good burger.
Well, good
Now,
for
now,
her.
can, can, can,
It's
can I say
space work is exhausting and
can I say
gives
something
you an
just about
appetite.
this
Yes,
about this
please,
picture?
son.
Okay, this picture is a lot less dark than we saw of the first season of Discovery. It almost kind of looks Orville-ish.
Oh, and speaking of Orville, that's coming out like in a week. I'm excited. No, not a week.
Sure, but
Less than
except if
that.
you look at the way that the commissary is lit, even in season one, it's pretty. It's much lighter uh, than uh, than a lot of the other sets on the show. I mean, engineering's
Yeah, I
pretty
will.
dark.
I will
The
admit
bridge
that.
is dark. The transporter
Can
is
we
dark.
not?
But
Can we not have like a dark Star Trek, please? I
I'm
want to
By
be
the
able
okay
to
way,
with the
see.
light. I'm okay with
we
it.
have yet to see if they're going to. We talked about whether they're going to show the bridge, the new version of the bridge of Enterprise at 1701. Uh, you would think that they would make a publicity thing out of showing it now, but
Nope.
maybe.
Nope.
Yeah,
Nope. Nope.
Because fans are going to be pissed no matter what they
yeah,
do.
you're right. That would be like making them go, nope, don't watch it. Look at that bridge. I
You
see what you're saying.
also won't see it in the premiere because again they want to
Maybe a
focus on
hint of
something
it on the
different.
screen. Maybe a hint, like the not the whole thing.
Maybe, but
You
no.
may
It's
see it.
just
You
it's
may see it in a
distracting. You have to
face-to-face
remember that all these
communication,
things that
but
you're
yeah.
bringing up, George,
That's what
are
I mean. Like
distractions.
I, I think they built a bridge set, and I think that we're going to see parts of it, and they're going to tease the fans into like trying to examine everything they can see and like search.
No. Fans will do that on their own,
Well, no,
no
because they
Correct.
matter
know that.
what
That's what I
Trek
mean.
does.
I know that, but that's what I
No,
mean.
they're
Like they
not. They're not
know.
going to give away anything.
No, yeah.
I believe we will see it. I don't think you'll see it early in the season.
All right, maybe
But you
later.
will see it in a way that makes sense, and of course, it'll come as a surprise, um, because that's the best way to deal with it, so that people can react to it, and the reaction, creates more word of mouth for the
I think
show.
you might be right.
But
I
teasing
agree.
too early, it just gives the naysayers and the toxic fans way too much material to bring up way too early in the season. So it's not going to happen.
So
Okay.
okay. So Carlos, I'm imagining them actually having that shot of the bridge at some point later, and I'm just imagining you turning into Gingy from Shrek, going, "Not the buttons, not the gumdrop buttons."
Because they should be buttons, or because they aren't gumdrop buttons.
No, because they shouldn't be gumdrop buttons, but they are.
Oh God, yes, they shouldn't be. But if they do
I
go
like
with
the
gumdrop
gumdrop button.
buttons, well, they look beautiful. But until you actually I worked on the New Voyages set, and once you're actually there, you realize this is not how anything would work.
Right. I kind
I
of. You
mean,
know what my favorite bridge helm panel is? Star Trek 2 when they have the levers that you slide down, up and down. When and the buttons like the white buttons that Savick and Sulu used. I like that layout. My
sure.
opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a certain utility to it that the original series sets really just didn't have. Um, but I think what you're seeing now on Discovery is probably makes a lot more sense given what we know about user interfaces with computers.
Hey,
Right.
hey, look at it this way. At least we don't have the little wooden memory slats anymore.
Oh, you mean you're talking about the
The original
discs?
series.
Yeah.
Yeah, those little wooden memory cards that you could hear the wood scraping
I'm
against the
actually.
stuff when they slid them in.
I'm just glad they got rid of the L cars. To be honest with you, I was never a fan of that. But that's my opinion.
No,
I.
I loved LCARS as an artifact of the 1990s, because if you
Yeah.
examine it with any real uh, critical eye, you see that it's in many ways it's just a really faulty user interface. It's not intuitive. But it
It's
looks
like
great from
Linux
a
for
distance.
sci-fi.
Yeah, I mean, so what you're seeing now on Discovery is a user interface that frankly makes a lot more sense. And if anything, it feels a little more, DOS-ish than you might expect. But I'm okay with that. I mean, it gives you it displays a lot of actual information. The way they interact with it in 3 dimensions, I think, makes a lot of sense given user interfaces that are currently in development. So I mean, it just works better from a practical standpoint.
All right. Well, this has been a long show, and it is 4:10 in the morning where I am. So I would
Oh
like.
my God! Sorry about that, guys. It's my
No, no, no,
fault.
no, no. I don't. I have no problem with that. I'm usually up late anyways. But I feel like we've gone through pretty much every topic except the one that I had listed that doesn't really need to be talked about this week. But you added the Star Trek one, which I thought we had talked about before, and I could be wrong, but it's okay because no problem with discussing a different view of it. But I think you might be right. I might have assumed we talked about it and we didn't. Um, yeah, so that was our season finale. We will be back for season 3 after the new year at whatever point, and
And we'll have so much to talk about next
we
year.
will talk about everything under the sun. CL, I'm just kidding.
Ooh, well put.
I'm kind of always around, so yeah.
All right, where can people find you on social media, Sun?
You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/SunScaleFan. That's my fan page where I usually post the episodes that I'm in of whatever I'm in.
And
Lately,
Carlos.
it's been Super Geeks.
Yeah, that's you. And Mr. Super Geek himself, Carlos, where can people find you?
On Facebook, you can find me in the Axomonitor Facebook group, online, on the internet, on the website axomonitor.com, and on Twitter at Axomonitor. And then my personal on Twitter is at cpedraza.
All right, and you guys can find me usually here or other things like Chooch99A on Twitter. Yeah, so that was season finale. We will definitely be back, unless we all die in the apocalypse, which I'm hoping doesn't happen.
Yes, I would love the Mayan apocalypse to happen. How
No,
many years late?
yeah, I know, right? Okay, I want to thank everyone for sticking around for the last 20 episodes. Wow, I can't believe it's been 20 weeks since this all got restarted. But we'll be back for another 20 episodes in 2019 or more. So I want to thank you for joining us. And we have a lot of different things coming in 2019. Like I said, Game of Thrones is coming back for its final season. So I know that Carlos and I and possibly Sean are going to talk about that. And we will talk about Star Trek Discovery. And there'll be a little bit of a break for Doctor Who. But you know what? It's quality versus quantity. So we do have at least the New Year's special. We could talk about that in a future episode. But so much to talk about. And yeah, so everybody have a great New Year's. Good Christmas. Merry Christmas, by the way, to you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's Christmas Eve right now, technically, like Sun pointed out. And yeah, so that's cool. So thank you for joining me on this Christmas early Eve. And we'll talk to you the next time. Peace out, people.
Bye.